Hello, everyone. Of course, the starting question, can you hear me? I'm assuming that you can. Today, I'm here once more with Amanda, and we're going to be talking about X-Men and Magneto. More Magneto. We're actually going to be following up on a video that I did on the channel about baby Magneto. Magneto de-aged to a baby. It's a good time. So let me bring Amanda on in here. Hello.
Hello. Hello, everyone. How y'all doing? I'm actually going to pull the chat up here so I can see all your beautiful comments. Yes.
Are you excited to talk about the revenge of former baby Magneto? Because I was going to say revenge of
I
baby
am.
Magneto, but I'm like, well, he's not a baby at the moment, so that's not entirely accurate. But
Yeah, he's not a baby at the moment, but he was a baby, and clearly
as
he
were we all.
feels as were we all. He was a baby again, and I think it really affected him. I never thought about how deeply that affected him. You know what I also realized from this issue? That
What?
this comes right after another crazy issue, because this is after one of the carnival stories, and I was
Yes.
like, oh yeah. So like with everything that happens with Mesmero, I was just having flashbacks to when I initially read that and was like, this story is wild. And then I was like, oh yeah, this next story is also wild. This is like a string of wild stories, like this segment of X-Men. It's great. It's perfect. What more could you want?
It's also very interesting how dark it gets at points, but then other points it's incredibly campy and rushed, and there are just so many random details thrown into other things, retcons that will then themselves later be retconned, which is just fascinating.
The fact that at one point we allude to how Magneto was never the father of Lorna, and
Yes, he's
because
like,
he
that
was
was
a
a robot.
robot, and I was like, oh yeah. I was like, that's gonna come back around. He was like, that never is a thing. And I'm like, well, let's not say never, Magneto. Might be a thing sooner than you think. But yeah, it is there's also a lot of power scaling that happens in this that is
Yes, is fascinating.
interesting.
It's
Yeah.
really interesting to see where people are at, and also some personalities at the time, especially if you're used to intellectual Beast. I'm like, I always forget about really like quippy casual Beast that was also happening.
This is like, so I have been reading like classic X-Men, like
Hmm.
60s X-Men lately, and I was like, "Oh yeah, we're in like a totally different Beast era here." Like he even sounds to me, Beast here sounds, I would say, a little bit similar even
Like
to like
Iceman.
Wolverine. Oh,
Oh, okay. I
Iceman.
was
Yeah.
because like
Yeah, I
Iceman
can
in
see
the
that.
60s used to do all like the joking and stuff, like when he's calling Magneto Maggie and stuff, and I was like, it's just, it feels weird.
We need to bring Maggie back because I miss the Maggie days. I was like, oh yeah, remember when we all called him Maggie and that was the thing for a while? And he doesn't even seem to mind it. Like he's just like, yeah, whatever. Like, call me Maggie.
It's the privilege of being close foes. You can give each other nicknames. Well, I mean, he's calling Wolverine all kinds of names in these issues, so
That's true.
everybody's
I
calling Wolverine names.
Everyone's calling Wolverine names. Also, everyone's iconic in these issues. Everyone's like, you're like most like well-known foe. And I'm like, I feel like everyone is everyone's most well-known foe these days. It's like anyone that walks in through the door, we're like, most well-known foe. Love this person, great foe. Would recommend. 10 out of 10 this
Yeah,
foe.
no notes. Just
Or even in how Magneto talks about this idea of like the reason that I get to destroy you is
Mhm.
because you guys are my like greatest enemies. So if there's anyone that I want to destroy, it's you. And in a weird way, I was like, this is like weirdly flattering. Like I feel like Magneto is like negging the X-Men or something. Like he's like you're awful, but like I'm into it. You know. That's why I'm gonna take you to my lava base. I'm like, wow,
Oh yes, but I'm excited to show them the lava base. There's some
the
very
lava
nice art
base.
in
There's
these.
great art. Yeah, there's some great art. This lava base goes hardcore.
Yes,
Never
it's very
forget
exciting.
the
So I
lava
want to
base.
give a quick like how we got here, how we got to this moment for people who are not in the know. which is that in Defenders 16, Magneto and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, because oftentimes they get left behind in remembering that they too were de-aged, but they were all de-aged into babies by Alpha, the ultimate mutant, who Magneto created when he found some alien tech and decided to utilize it to create an alien ultimate mutant. And even though it was his fault entirely that he got de-aged to a baby, he is going to blame the X-Men for it. So...
As you do when you're Magneto. Whose fault is this? Probably the X-Men.
He stayed a baby for years, actually, a good maybe 3-4 years until X-Men 104, where then he is re-aged by Eric the Red. And they just drop you in right there. They're like, oh yeah, he was always here on Muir Island, which this is also the first appearance of. And we were keeping him in this room, and Moira was looking after him, and now he's been re-aged. And there you go.
That's that problem solved.
It's one of those interesting things where what most people remember is they bring it back really hard in the 90s, where it's this huge plot point, and it's that Moira tried to mess with his DNA and alter how his powers were able to flow through him so that he would remain more stable. And it didn't work. They also play with the idea that somehow altering your genes could also be brainwashing. It's a whole thing. But before that, there is this little blip where in X-Men issues 112 and 113, where he decides to get revenge on them for this. And it's an experience.
Rightfully so. Clearly it was all their fault, very clearly. Also, I will say the way that he's like, I'm going to get revenge on them for this is like, sounds like the worst, like it would be the worst thing to ever happen to you. I'm like, wow. This is clearly very upsetting to you, Magneto, because this sounds like one of the worst punishments you could ever come up with.
It's really, really intense. It is really pretty intense.
I mean, it is Magneto, though, so I do expect intensity.
A certain level of extraness.
Yeah.
So let me share the screen so the people can see. I'll, of course, make it bigger as we get into look at individual panels and the like. But this is X-Men 112, Magneto Triumphant, which was also the cover title they actually gave to the 90s issue, which with the X-Men 2. I don't know why it's slanted. I scanned it and it was straight, but now it's decided to be slanted. But that's fine. The point is they both say Magneto Triumphant.
Magneto Triumphant. Classic.
So we're playing with that. This story is also pretty extra as this one. We also have an early example here of Magneto manipulating Wolverine by trying to make him like stab himself in the eyes.
Yes. Something that honestly doesn't happen enough, weirdly. I was sorry, Wolverine. Something I was thinking about was I was like, this doesn't really happen often enough in the comics.
It's true.
And when that trick.
When you see this cover, it's surprising that it took so long to get to X-Men 25, where he's like ripping out the skeleton. I'm like, it is surprising when you see that it was lightly played with on occasion, like here.
Well, and especially when we consider in this issue, there's a lot of ways that Magneto is going to deal with the X-Men.
Yes.
And some of them are... I'm like, wow, yeah, that makes sense and is really cool. Wolverine being one of them. And some of them are just completely bonkers. And I'm like, okay, so this is the thing we're going to have in here, but we're not going to follow up on this for a bit. Even though I'm like, yeah, there's so much you could do with Wolverine. Wolverine's like a literal puppet for Magneto.
Yes. So is Colossus, which they acknowledge here.
Yes.
This is a rough issue to be Colossus as well. So this issue is written by Chris Claremont. It has pencils by John Byrne, and then it's inked by Terry Austin, and the colors are by Mary Titus. Everything's going to stay the same for the next one, except the colorist is going to change to Glynis Wein. So that is what we are looking at. And the year, what year are we in? 1978. So late 70s.
Late 70s. Here we go. It's about to get wacky in the late 70s. Hope
What
you're
we
all
have
ready.
here is the new X-Men roster. So we've done Giant Size X-Men. This is the new revamped lineup, and he's already fought them once, which they're going to reference in the editor's notes, and that was in 104.
Hmm.
And they even say up here that he beats them hands down. So they're being very complimentary to Magneto's skills in that last encounter.
Oh my gosh.
They're also playing again with the gentleman's name is Magneto, because we love to explain what Magneto is calling himself, what men call him. He is power.
He is
But
power. He is Magneto. I mean, I love how we get the classic Magneto looking super strung out almost in his helmet. This
yes,
panel just brought me so much joy where he says, "You're that already, my friend. But why not give your little madman his moment of glory? He could use a lesson in manners." Like these eyes.
I know.
I'm like, wow. Whoa. Um, I also love how it starts out with everybody just being trapped in this caravan and not realizing until it's too late that they're way up in the sky.
Yes, it's a great moment with Nightcrawler when he actually, yeah, there it is. But I need to shrink it back down. Where he tries to teleport out, but
Yeah.
instead he ends up realizing they're hurtling through the atmosphere in this caravan, which is a really hilarious image juxtaposed with how seriously everything is meant to be
Else
being
is
taken.
else is going. And I love it's such a fun reveal too of like, oh, I'll just like get out of here. And then it's like, oh wait, I won't because there's nowhere to go right now. I was very surprised. I was like, wow, they got high quickly and no one felt that. But you know, Magneto, he's a smooth operator, so I'm sure he lifted them up seamlessly in this
Well, I
very
mean, yes,
wooden
in this
carriage.
wood, there's got to be metal on there somewhere.
There's you just can't see it. It's not colored in, but there's
It's
metal
there.
somewhere in there. Yeah. It's implied.
This is yet another instance of Wolverine being called a name, which is Madman. The
Mm.
Magneto is not here for Wolverine in these issues at all. There's just lots of harshness. It really sells the whole rivalry thing, which like they were bringing up in X-Men 97, even though it wasn't fully foregrounded in that show. But I'm like, it's there. I know why they were, referencing it. But
One of his like most famous villains, as he says during the whole Fatal Attractions story. He talks about
yes,
how Wolverine is like one of his greatest foes. And I was like, wow, greatest foes. Here it is. We're seeing it. Greatest.
well, I don't know if it's better to be called Madman or Shortcake, which is what Beast
Mm.
is calling him,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because
Uh,
this is the sassy Beast.
very sassy. Face it, shortcake. The ball's in Magneto's court. Such a very different tone this whole time for Beast. I'm just like, man, remember when Beast was all about like just saying long words? That's the time that I always remember the most fondly. So I'm like, oh, this feels so weird, but this is
I
correct.
know it feels like out of character, even though I know it isn't for this time period.
No, it's just the evolution of the character, but it's very jarring when you're reading something totally different in tone.
Also,
Also, I
just
love
how
all these flashbacks as well that we get.
yes, this is a staple of the of the Magneto stories that we've read together. Is that there always
Yeah.
needs to be some elaborate explanation as to where Magneto was, because he's always been off doing something else, and they're like, well, actually, he came back because, and there's always an extremely long explanation.
There's always some excuse where he's like, well, if you're wondering how I got here, why I came here. Like, I love how he's just said that he's been tailing Beast this entire time. And I love the implication that although Magneto did not change his outfit even to blend in, unlike how Beast did, even though Beast's disguise also is a whole other topic in that previous story.
Yes.
It's just like a trench coat and a hat, but he's still Beast underneath. I don't know. He's like, no one will notice me at the circus. People will be too distracted by other things. But Magneto's just like, you didn't even notice that I was following you, even though I was just like, and everyone else was distracted by other things. So no one noticed me, actually. I'm like, okay, that's...
I feel like Magneto is a credible threat. He's attacked the UN multiple times at this point, and he's just casually walking through the circus.
A circus in his full outfit. He's got the helmet. He's got the cape, guys. It's like, Magneto, what are you talking about? What does he say where he says, he explains how, oh yeah, the Beast made an excellent stalking horse, drawing everyone's attention while I stayed in the background and watched what developed. I'm like, was he drawing everyone's attention when he was in his, like, disguise? I guess maybe. I guess Magneto was like, no one, look, Beast, I'm gonna be real with you. Like, no one bought that disguise. You were distracting. Everyone was like, what is that? A big...
They're like, maybe it's best if we just don't say anything. Let's just ignore it. Maybe he'll go away. Maybe he just wants to see the show.
Yeah, all these innocent civilians at the circus are like, wait, is that Magneto? Look, let's just not get involved.
This is also where we see why Mesmero was here, because Mesmero was the person behind the carnival circus plot where they were all convinced to be part of this carnival and that they had always been there.
Never forget Magneto Mesmero, put a stop to that. Iconic. Magneto definitely put a stop to that. I like how Magneto's like, even I could not abide this ridiculousness. And he also, like, kind of tries to shame the X-Men about it. Like, he's like, you guys were, like, struggling to stop it. And if you didn't do it, I was about to step in to save you, even though I hate you. That's how bad it is. That's how embarrassing this was.
Poor Mesmero. He's very abused in this issue.
He is.
This is also where he tries to pretend, or actually at the time, they were just trying to say that he wasn't Lorna's dad. The Magneto this fool served, the one who claimed to be the father of Lorna Dane, was a robot.
Yes, classic. Was a robot, wasn't me, will never be a thing until it is, and then
until it is again. Mind. But yes. I also love that having a robot duplicate is just a very valid potential. It's like, oh yeah, robot sounds legit. Who doesn't have a robot duplicate, really? Are you anybody if you don't have a robot duplicate?
If you don't have a robot duplicate running around, who are you? I know. I love how when that was explained, I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
I know. In my head, I was like, just like Superman,
I was thinking to myself how many times Dr. Doom has used that excuse for something. That was a Doombot. This thing... That was a Doombot too.
It's like, was it cool? If it was cool, it was me. If it wasn't, it was a Doombot.
It was a Doombot, yeah.
These poor people who spot the UFO of the flying circus wagon and are going to have to report it and explain it.
I loved how they took this in, though. Like, to be honest, I want more of a glimpse into their lives, because they're like, okay, so we're following this flying caravan, and we're, like, amazed by it. But fortunately, something came out the back. So now we can just recover that. We can go home and we can get drinks. And I'm like, what is happening? And just the fact that they see it happening and the other guy is like, I see this happening and I can't believe it. And I actually hate that I'm seeing it because I don't think it's possible, but I can see it. And the other guy's like, I wish I could say it's not possible, but I can also see it. Oh no. Like, what will we do about this? And they're like, oh, thank God, someone came out the back. Let's follow that guy.
I know. It's like, let's deal with that. That's easier to explain
than this, follow this caravan thing. We'll just explain, we'll tell someone about that, but let's make our priority something else. What a strange cameo. I'm assuming these people are just here to establish that, like, Mesmero gets picked up.
Yes, to establish that he didn't just hurtle to his death, because we also have this panel where Storm is also concerned
for Mesmero. Yeah, you monster. Even if Mesmero was your most hated enemy, once again, everyone's everybody's most something, to callously hurl him to his death. Magneto's
and then we get another wonderful display of how Magneto's powers work.
Work.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because they also attempt this issue. attempts to simultaneously explain how he's so powerful, but also slightly depower him at the same time, which is a very interesting experience because they're going to go on about how when Eric the Red returned him to his prime, it also did that to his powers. It was like, now my powers are also at their prime, which
Yes.
is a fascinating concept to explain. Just they're really trying to scale the powers in this issue.
The power
Also, Caesar,
scaling is like off the charts in this issue. It's like a
it
lot
is.
of, they were like, let's scale this.
Caesar Diaz is saying Happy Father's Day. Yes, indeed. Happy Father's Day to all of the dads out there. I
Including
hope that,
Magneto. Happy Father's Day,
including
Magneto.
Magneto, despite what he is saying in this issue.
He's in denial, but it'll come around. Honestly, it's the most classic Magneto thing to, I think, be somewhat in denial of your children. It's kind of a constant thing that's happened in his life. But yes, happy Father's Day to everyone.
Wilbert Robinson is asking, is this Cyclops or Shi'ar Eric the Red? This is not Cyclops. Cyclops was there to defeat at this time period.
Yes, yes. Cyclops says we cannot abide this. But yeah.
Jarrell Mason is asking, his helmet protects his mind, right? Not at this point.
No.
Not at this point. But it also is not going to matter.
It protects his head.
Yes.
Though, which is established. Protects his head from getting punched in the head, though. So the helmet does serve a purpose in these issues, just not a psychic purpose.
Yes, and no one's going to attempt to attack him psychically, even though they could, but they're not going to.
And they should, honestly. I think this would have been a good time to try a psychic attack, but we're going to reserve that because Magneto is super powerful. Magneto is power. Everyone remember that?
Yes. It's only men who call him Magneto, so...
He's a madman, but he is powerful. Also... The whole thing with Mesmero that we were talking about before, just to establish this for everybody.
Yes.
What Magneto does before they get to the lava base is he says that he's going to control Mesmero's descent so he won't die, because that's the thing he can do, because that's part of his power set, apparently. I don't know if that's because Mesmero has like metal on his costume or if that's like an iron in the blood. I don't know if iron in the blood has been established yet as a thing at this era. Have we established that already?
I'm not sure.
Like, I don't know. I want to say it's already been talked about, but he's just like, I can just do that. And I'm like, from any range though? Like, how long? Like, are we going to stay here while that's happening? It seems like we're just flying on. But then you know what? I was talking to Uptown Duck about this, and he was saying, but when you think about it, like Magneto can like mess with the magnetism of the whole Earth and like reverse the polar whatever. Yes. And I was like, yeah, that is true. So that is something to keep in mind. But I've always thought of that as like, he can only do that when he's like really going hard. However, we do also establish that he's like at his most powerful. So
he can just go hard, basically. He can do everything at the same time, because we're going to establish that he's going to be maintaining this lava base while also rebuilding the asteroid M base. He's doing everything. Also, these panels are gorgeous.
Exhausting. These panels are gorgeous. Can we talk about the base? Like, look at
the base is amazing. I love the base. Man,
I miss the base. We should bring it back. Has the lava base ever been brought back? Because this is like primo villain. Like, I hope now that Magneto is going to be, I think, re-entering his villain era, maybe we should bring back the lava base in the new X-Men era. Maybe we could do that, because, you know, Magneto is a super genius.
Yes, they talk about it down here. I just want to show them him blowing up the wagon.
What a way to land.
Welcome to my humble home, X-Men.
Welcome to my humble home. Welcome to my humble home. And then the bottom of the page is just an entire base. So humble. Magneto is probably the most humble character that we have. Marvel Comics.
And here's where they really talk up his intelligence here, where they say that it would be like rivaled by, that would do Tony Stark or Reed Richards proud. So I'm like, wow, it's high praise, you know, for Magneto's lava base.
Magneto's lava base. I need to know. I mean, I'm just gonna pull up his wiki. I just want to know if it is listed. Is he a super genius? Because I feel like someone needs to add that. Because I know we don't talk about it now. Magnetism. Yeah, he's got a lot of things he can do with magnets, as we know. I don't know if there's the part where he can slowly lower you to the earth. This is detailed here, but genius intelligence, a mastermind. There you go. What's his intelligence at? What do they have it at here? They have it at a 5. So it's not so bad. It's pretty good. Maybe he has like moments where he's more smart than other moments as well.
Maybe it just
like,
needs to be focused on, intense villainy. Like if it has to do with melodramatic villainy, then he's all there.
Yes.
It also says that this is a number of similar installations Magneto has scattered throughout the globe, because he did have a couple.
Right.
I remember. Like
yes.
this wasn't the only one.
No, this is just one of a few. So he loves a lava base, I think. Who doesn't?
I love a lava base.
Me too. Especially after this issue. There are some flaws to it,
Thank you very much. It's appreciated. There were some flaws in this one, which we will see.
I would say don't store your important files in your lava base. It's a lesson that we all learn here.
So as soon as they land, they all start trying to take out Magneto. But one of the things is that part of the lesson of these issues is teamwork. The importance of teamwork makes the dream work, and it means you don't get captured by Magneto, because when they go one at a time, it just goes incredibly poorly for them.
Yeah. I will also say, I feel like teamwork makes the dream work is like one of the pillar like lessons that we have with X-Men. It's like so central to who the X-Men are that we always have to be focusing on teamwork, because when we all do our own thing, it never works out. Do we ever learn that? Do we ever stop trying to do our own thing? No. We always have to relearn that teamwork is important. Which is, how it doesn't go well here for them, because we basically get like almost each page is like a different someone trying to do something to Magneto, and Magneto being like, here's why that doesn't work for me.
Yeah, and poor Colossus. Your armored form makes you the weakest X-Man, aside from Wolverine, which we're not going to acknowledge at the moment. But both of you probably equal because of all the metal. But
yeah. But you know what? I think we got to call Colossus the weakest, because Wolverine is one of these epic villains. So
that's true
for Magneto, one of his rivals. He's like, my most famed foe.
Colossus hasn't earned that status, so
that's right. So he's like, you're just weak, and I'm just gonna throw you up in the air. That's dealt with. And then Beast also has this fantastic line of "Cowabunga, sweetums."
Yes, he does. It's so funny.
Ninja Turtles, so hot right now.
Oh, it feels so off-brand, but I love it so much.
I mean, he does also say, he calls him so many things in this. Not bad, Maggie, but let's see you try that stunt with the genuine, guaranteed, non-ferrous beast. Which is like, kind of feels like a combination of a few different styles of his speaking. Then he goes into cowabunga, sweetums. So it's like, I'm like, I see a little bit of all of the beasts in this statement. Yeah, and then he just tries to jump at him. And Magneto defeats him with a static electricity, basically.
Which we explain is because of the Eric the Red thing, because they put an editor's note to it and everything. Where it's like, my powers have been at their peak. No force on Earth can stand against me.
No force on Earth.
Storm actually, she nearly takes him out, but her conscience won't let her, because she's like, but I can't kill Magneto. And then he has a whole, it's too bad that cold enhances my magnetic powers. Just like everything in this issue enhances my magnetic powers.
Remember when he almost like melted Iceman?
Yes.
Remember when Iceman attacked him with the ice, and we read that, and Iceman was like, oh, this is going to be great. Like, I'll basically like freeze him. Like, I got all the ice. Nothing he can do against that. And that seemed to actually be a little bit of a problem for Magneto. I wonder if he ever knew at that point that at one point, cold would just, he'd be like, blast me more. I'm not afraid. It's just going to level me up, baby. Also, I was trying to think of a reason. Sasha and I were talking about this before the stream, and I was saying I immediately started to try to like scientifically justify this. Like I was like, well, maybe it has to do with when you're cold, your atoms get like closer together, right? And they're all like bouncing around. And I was like, maybe because this is like magnetic powers that like charges up the magnets, something like that. I don't know if this is how magnets work. I don't know. But I like how my mind was immediately trying to justify this for me.
I appreciate that you put so much effort into it when the issue is just like Eric the Red. That's all you need to know. That
Eric
explains everything.
Now cold powers him up. Don't make him cold, otherwise he'll hit you. Unless you're gonna actually go full, you can't hold back. As
yes, because he'll sense it.
He'll sense it. That was a fatal mistake, as he says. And then Storm is out, blasted by magnets. I'm not sure what's even happening here. What's happening here? Is she blasted by magnets?
Yeah, Kit Spicken says magnets. How do they work?
Magnets, how do they work? Actually enhances my magnetic powers, turning me into a living superconductor. And then he just points at her.
And it's done.
There you go. Enough said.
This one, enough said, exactly. This one with how he takes out Nightcrawler with Colossus is actually pretty cool.
This I actually really liked. I think they actually gave Kurt something fun other than just Storm's like, you held back. There you go, you're gone. Actually, you powered me up. With Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler obviously tries to teleport in. And I like how Nightcrawler even acknowledges, like, I think I'm out of my league. But, like, what am I gonna do? Hide? Like, I can't just hide. But I love how he has a moment where he's just like, I'm not ready for this. This is above my pay grade. If I had any sense, I'd stay hidden in the shadows. After all, I'm no more than a glorified acrobat. Poor Kurt. But he goes in anyways, because he's a hero. And, Magneto does decide to throw him up into the air at the same time he's bringing Colossus down. And they establish that because Colossus is in his metal form, if Nightcrawler's to hit him at this speed, it'll be like hitting a brick wall. So it could kill Nightcrawler. Which is crazy.
It's a really cool moment.
It's pretty cool. Honestly, I really liked this moment. Even though now I am thinking, like, Nightcrawler maybe could have bamfed out of the way. But he did just bamf to get in there. And we also know, especially in the earlier days, like, teleporting around is, like, exhausting. So he could be like, I can't teleport out of this. But Colossus saves the day. He changes into his human form. So they both get hurt, but they don't have any broken bones. They're just bruised up and knocked out.
And so then we get to move on to Banshee, who has an interest, because they call it back to what happened to him in 104. And it's somehow Magneto manages to like reverse his powers back on him. It's interesting.
I like how they're like, you thought we were going to use this old trick that we did last time, where I think like Magneto took bits of metal and like used that to like manipulate him. And Banshee's like, I'm not falling for that trick again. And then it turns out that Magneto has a new trick, which is, I'm gonna... What does he say? Does he explain it?
He says, the walls vibrating low-frequency sonics. And that's what we did here.
He's warping me scream back at me. That's what he says. Warping me scream... So I guess he's using magnets to reverberate this, to like contain it, I guess.
Yeah, to like
so that
condense it
to him.
Back at him.
Because that's how magnets work.
It's like one of these days I really should just take the time to be like, figure out how magnets work. But I'm just like, when in any other context, except for discussing Magneto and maybe a science lesson with my children one time, is this going to come up? But...
We need to do a collab with a science YouTuber on the channel where we then bring up these points and go like, so here's what we're thinking in terms of comic book science. And then
now
they say to us
actual science.
Real science. And they can explain to us, like, could you do this with magnets? Like, can you contain a sonic frequency and bounce it off walls with magnets? Is this possible?
Mythbusters, but comic book
Mythbusters. Magnet Busters.
Magnet Busters.
Oh my gosh. We need If anyone has any suggestions for YouTubers that know a lot about magnets, is there a YouTuber that's like that is a master of magnetism? Because we could use that person. I need help. I need them to explain
I'm
it to
sure
me.
there is.
I know a lot of I follow a lot of science YouTubers because I find it fascinating, but I don't remember anyone. I know people that have talked about magnets. Kyle Hill would probably be up for it. Okay. Well, maybe we got to talk to this Kyle Hill. Yeah, but anyways, that's how that works, I guess.
And Cyclops is just judging the entire team. This whole time he's like, man, why don't we ever work together every single time? There's no coordination, no strategy.
Even though, let's be real, Cyclops was the one that initially said, and I'm sure Cyclops is beating himself up for it because that is classic Cyclops. He says at the beginning, like, oh, dang, when we were in that caravan the whole time, would have been a good time to, like, enact a plan to, like, maybe let people know, like, we're gonna team up.
Because there's a moment there where they actually say that part of the ride is just taken in uncomfortable silence. That Magneto just says that I'm going to defeat all of you, and they just sit there quietly and just awkwardly for the rest of the trip to the lava base.
About that. Yeah, just think about, oh no, we're about to get destroyed. Oh, awkward.
So it's like that really would have been the time to maybe plan
huddle
something.
up, maybe like whisper some things. I don't know, have a little psychic chat. You got Phoenix there with you. You could have done that. So yeah, it is. I mean, he is right though. Scott is right. He's like, you know, we kind of botched this one. Not our best work.
They weren't prepared. It was like it was right from the carnival to this. They didn't have time.
But it's all right because they have Phoenix, right? Right, Sasha? Phoenix is undefeatable, unlimited power. You can do anything as the Phoenix, right?
Until you can't, like in this issue.
Until you realize, oh, wait a minute, my power is limited.
I like that they also, like, it is in all fairness part of the leading up to what's going on, you know, with her.
Yeah, with Jean.
But at this point, it's just like, what? I've reached my limit, but I thought I had no limit. And even though if you read everything going forward, it's going to slot a bit better in, independently, it just feels like they're taking her off the board.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I do really like this panel where it looks like her head's on fire, though. Just where it's like she's floating backwards into the flame. It's really cool.
I mean, you know, Magneto bottle nectar.
Yes.
It's classic. It's a classic move. He does this all the time with people.
Listen, the magnetic forces of the Earth itself create a bottle effect. It says so right there.
I mean, I don't know why he doesn't do this all the time. Imagine the things you could do with that kind of power, using the forces of the Earth to bottleneck anyone's power. We should do this all the time. Yeah, it draws her life energy out of her like a sponge.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds useful. And
it's
so
impressive.
then it's very impressive. So it's established. Everyone remember, Magneto is stronger than the Phoenix. And if you disagree, you're apparently incorrect.
You can pull this out. Nerd fights.
You can pull this out for a nerd fight. This is great. This is some great ammunition.
Yeah, take notes. X-Men 112, 1978.
Defeats the Phoenix. Phoenix does have limited power established. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think, like you said, a lot of what's happening here, though, if we want to try to justify it in the greater context of everything, is that, yeah, I think we just aren't really sure what's happening with Phoenix yet. And then she finds out, like, oh no, I have this, like, unlimited cosmic power. And then I think when you kind of realize that, that's kind of the path that leads to Dark Phoenix. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
These are some of my favorites.
This is the best. Here. This is the best.
Just the way that they draw Wolverine's eyes here. It's haunting. It's just the sheer horror as he realizes what could happen to him, which Magneto just doesn't do because he's not in the mood. He just has him punch himself in the face.
Yep. Yeah. He's like, you know what? I'm not even going to do that. I'm not that guy yet.
Yet. So. Give me a few decades. I'll get there.
I'll get there. But for now, we're just going to make you punch yourself in the face. I mean, Comics Code is still here. So, you know, maybe.
It's true. And it still has teeth. Like, it has less teeth, but it still has some. So
it has some teeth. So maybe don't stab yourself right in the eyes with claws. Just punch yourself in the face, Wolverine.
I love these.
And we also get this fantastic sound effect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Snack. Row.
Brow. Brow.
It's like
Shacked.
this
Great
stays with me though.
onomatopoeias in
Like when
here.
I think of this issue, I think of this image. It's why I used it for the thumbnail. I'm like, this. It's
Yeah.
a very arresting image. Even though it's a bit more stark on the cover, it's still good in here.
The far left panel at the bottom, is that the one that you like the best? Or
The middle.
the middle is my favorite. The
Yeah,
eyes.
I like
It's
the
like,
middle. It's the eyes. It's all on the eyes, like the little sweat beads that they've put on there, the little tremor they've put across,
in
like
his
against to
claws.
know that he's fighting it. Like all those nice little details that are there.
Yeah. Yeah, Wolverine looks so scared of this. Like, it's kind of great, actually. I
I
feel like
love
it's
that the.
something we don't see very often,
It's
actually,
true.
is Wolverine being scared of things.
It's true.
And even though
I
he's
like.
probably stabbed himself in the face or, like, been stabbed in the face before, it's like, it still
Oh,
really hurts.
that was like one of the jokes they made in Ultimate when him and Peter swapped bodies. Was Peter like stabbing himself with the claws all over the place?
Oh, boy.
So at this
What a
point, he's
wild time.
won. He's defeated them all.
Yes.
And then he takes time to set up what is.
Classic power pose, too, with the cape. Love it.
Yes. It's great. Oh, the cape looks great here.
It
Actually,
does.
this is what it's for. It's for moments like this.
She can hold it up and be like, I beat them all.
So here is what this issue is remembered for, which is interesting because it's actually a really small part of it. It only comes up at the very end, which is that this is actually a revenge plot for Alpha, even though again that was his own fault, but you know what? It's fine. And this really fascinated me about this issue when you compare it also to the 90s issue, which is that every time we revisit him being turned into a baby, it gets worse. Like we make it a
Right.
worse and worse experience each time because like for the first bit it's just like, oh, you just assume like he was a baby. But here they add in this element that like no, his body was a baby, but his mind was still his mind, that he was just trapped in infant form, unable to do anything basically. And so he has somehow constructed this robot nanny that's just called Nanny, who is going to be the perfect mother. He has programmed it to be kind. It's not a mean nanny or anything like that. It is quite caring. But it's because he's going to.
It does look super evil and horrifying,
does.
though. Yeah.
It does.
He
with the
did
red
say,
eyes.
I'm not. He basically, I think, thought to himself, I'm going to make it really caring, but I'm not going to hide the creepiness of this. I'm going to actually lead with that because I do want them to be uncomfortable while they're being careful.
It's true.
I do want this robot to haunt their nightmares.
He's got them in these machines that basically are going to make it so that they can't move, they can't speak. They're going to have allegedly the coordination of about a 6-month-old is what they're supposed to have, even though in reality they're going to have a bit less, but we're going to say it's 6 months. You can do more than like a bit more than they can, like they're showing they can at 6 months, but it's okay for the purposes. It's still pretty horrifying. Also, he confines them too. Like they are confined to like these chair things also. He calls this an eye for an eye, which is this is a great panel.
This is
very
great.
dramatic.
An eye for an eye with the close up of the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's faces at the top. This whole page is like just straight fire. It's such a
It
good
really
page.
is. You get all the reaction shots. You get that each eye is kind of shaded differently, which is great.
Yeah.
One's more shadowed than the other.
Ooh. It's very visually satisfying. Cyclops just doesn't get to have eyes in this one because his eyes are too dangerous. I just felt like what a note to end this issue on. Also, like I was reading the interview that Chris Claremont did for the wedding issue of Mystique and Destiny in the Marvel Voices Pride, and one of the things he talked about as a writer is just like how the most important thing is making people want to read the next thing. and
Mhm.
like leaving it on a note that it's like, if it's a comic, you want them to like pick up the next issue. So it's always got to be this like, I have to know what happens next. Like I have to turn the page, I have to get the next issue. And I was
Mhm.
like, this is a perfect example of Claremont putting that into practice, because I was like, well, I got to read the next issue because like what
Yes.
happens next? How do you even get out of this?
No, and it's really good too because you still feel like you did get like a complete, not like not as in it's finished, but you feel like you definitely like things happened in this issue. You definitely got your
Yeah.
35 cents worth. Just poor Cyclops up here. That's really actually very horrifying that he's essentially just gonna be blinded and unable to move or do anything.
It's
Can't even like
the whole this whole like plan is like, okay, I understand that you were a baby for a bit, but like this is straight up horrific. Like this is like a horror movie.
mm-hmm.
I am like, he's like, don't worry, you'll have this robot that looks after you as you can't do anything and you're completely helpless and you'll be trapped here forever. I'm like, okay. Well,
Which is also I'm like Magneto.
I'd
I
be like, just
understand.
kill me.
I'm like
Don't do
Magneto. I
this.
understand that it was really horrifying, but also you were re-aging, so like this is not in quite like entirely
Not
equivalent.
really the same. Also, you were actually in the body of a baby, at least. Like, these people are adults that know what's happening to them, but have no control over it. So I feel like it's a little different when you're actually, like, having to relive infancy, because at least you're not, like, you know, cognitively, it's a very different experience. Also, I love how everyone in chat is wondering about who's gonna, like, poop themselves
Yes,
first.
I saw that.
That's the concern. But
They're
yeah,
like
I'm pretty
this.
sure that is what would happen. Magneto is Jigsaw before Jigsaw from Saw. Yes, this is very Jigsaw stuff. Uh Especially in the elaborate way in which we have to figure out how do you even deal with this?
No, Alpha. Yeah, they just left Alpha. Alpha left. Like Alpha left. The Veto Screamer is asking, like, what about Alpha? Alpha left because he did that thing where he like ascended to great knowledge, big head, and then was all, oh, like, I've grown beyond all of this. It's time to leave as you do when that happens. So
Time to leave as you do. And then
this is
yeah, is that the last that we see of Alpha too? Do we ever see Alpha again?
I think that is the last of Alpha from my recollections. I mean, unless he popped back up, I'm pretty sure that was like Alpha was just there for that. Now I kind of want to know. Was that the last we saw of Alpha, the ultimate mutant?
The ultimate mutant.
That was
Power
Defender
level's
16.
insane.
So that was Defenders number 16.
I mean, I'm seeing there's only 5 appearances listed.
Alpha.
Defenders 15, 16. Kazar actually.
Ooh, that's
14
exciting.
and 15, and then X-Men Alpha Volume 1, Issue 1.
Okay.
So that's obviously probably a one-shot, I'm assuming.
Not too much Alpha, but I mean, he didn't come back for this. Then he would have DH'd him again.
He did not. Magneto was like, "Look, I would have done this to Alpha, but Alpha's not here right now, so it's you guys that are getting this punishment." I feel like really Alpha should be the one that should be here
to be humbled, but he knows that's not possible, so he's humbling the next best thing.
He's just humbling whatever he can. His greatest foes. His greatest foes.
5 out of 5.
As he said, you know, it's my like right as your enemy who's been beaten so many times by you that I should just get to do whatever I want with your lives, basically. That's what I get at being your villain. It's my right, and how dare you say otherwise?
So
now
this
be a baby.
Enjoy the nanny.
Do it.
So this is the next issue that it jumps right into. And these ones, they really do kind of need to go together because that is such an intense cliffhanger to end on. And our cover title is kind of intense with Holocaust at the heart of a volcano, which is also not accurate to what happened in this issue.
Oh, man. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. This issue is wild. These covers are really good. If you see this on a rack, you're definitely picking up this issue as well.
But you also would not expect what is within it once you get into it.
I do feel like the the little tagline on the issue is a very interesting tagline.
It is.
Holocaust at the heart of a volcano. When falls Magneto? I'm like,
It was a choice.
Holocaust. I thought we were going to be getting into some origin story stuff, and then they were like, no, we're just going to put that on there because maybe
It's
it'll
just
make
there to make it sound dramatic.
Yeah, I mean, it is dramatic. To be fair, it's pretty dramatic. I don't know, which issue do you think is more dramatic, this issue or the last issue?
We'll ask that to the chat as well once we're done.
Yeah,
but
think about that as we go through.
There's one section in here that we're going to get to that makes me want to say this one. I'm leaning towards this one, but this one also has the more glaring like pacing things that the first one did not have.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
But I think this one I would go for as the more dramatic one. Like, even as we start this off with Magneto's just on a rampage.
Yeah.
He's just going around destroying all of these bases and these things. And they establish here that there's nobody around at the moment to stop him. They actually have an explanation as to like why
everyone's gone. They're like, we actually have no one on hand for this.
Yeah,
I also like that it's just called Showdown. That's the title of this issue.
Yes.
Showdown.
Succinct.
Nice.
And I like it too because his powers are kind of encasing the lettering a little bit, which is a nice touch. Like, it's coming at you.
Yeah.
Also, just the little thing of the broadcast being in black and white, like you're showing it there, like it's coming through the TV. There are lots of nice little touches, which is cool.
This is a very dynamic issue. Visually.
They explain where the people are. They go, unfortunately, of those groups of superheroes who would normally help us, the Fantastic Four and the Champions have disbanded. The Avengers are under virtual house arrest by order of the American government, and the X-Men, who defeated Magneto when he attacked Cape Citadel, seem to have vanished off the face of the earth. And then he just pieces out. He's like, this is John Teaver, BBC News. Like, on that note, bye, guys.
On that note, that's all I have to say about this. Basically, we're screwed. See ya.
We're doomed, and back to you.
Well, we're doomed. All right, Susan, tell us about the weather.
I was also looking up, apparently this was the name of a short story author in the 70s. That would have been a reference that some people would have recognized. I was like, oh, that's neat. I did not know that.
John Cheever. And then we get to go to a very fun place.
Well, Xavier is just pieced out for this issue. He is on a vacation kind of with Lilandra at the same place he went with after he broke up with Moira and like with recovering from that. And now he's making new memories with Lilandra. And he's just there to have this moment of my X-Men. I can't feel them. Something's happened to them, I think. I'm not going to do anything about it, though.
I know. This is like, especially when we consider the context of like, also just how Magneto is even like putting this on Charles as well.
Yes.
Like in his speech in the last issue, like he's like, I blame you and I blame Charles for like kind of training you, and Charles is like, I can tell something is messed up, but I'm not gonna do anything because I'm kind of busy chilling with my boo. So
it's interesting because I'm like, so they're cut off now. I'm like, what about when they were all brainwashed with Mesmero? Did anything happen there? Like, did he feel that too? I don't
think we cut to Charles during that part, so I don't know. He was busy at that time. I don't know if he was feeling anything. I mean, but maybe he wouldn't feel anything because they all believed they were who they were at that time, right?
That's like true. This is a bit different. They're all kind of cut off. But
so I don't know if your alarm bells would go off. I don't know.
Oh, maybe it's because they're in the lava base because they also have their minds. Like, they're all aware that they're still who they are. They're just trapped with this nanny.
Yeah. I mean, I just love how Charles ends it on, if I only knew.
Matthew Power, thank you very much. I know, because I've been keeping track of Batman of Zero and R, which is why you're mentioning Batman 148. Zero and R is probably dead now. Yes, it may be time to recap the Zero and R arc. We'll see how Absolute Power goes. And then maybe it'll be time for the Zero and R update, which is going to be almost as wild as what's going on in this issue with the nanny who is currently about to feed the
Feed the babies that
oh
are
gosh.
adults. Ay,
But
ay, ay.
also because even though he's like, you only have the coordination of a 6 month old baby, I still made sure to like secure your hands and your feet and all. So I'm like, that's right, because like they could still like move around like as 6 month olds. So he
Yeah.
really had to not just neutralize them. I also like this nanny's wearing a stereotypical maid outfit.
Oh
It's
my
just went all out.
gosh. It's just so extra. It's like also someone was asking in chat if Nanny
Mm.
does appear again. She does appear like a handful of times. She does come back, I believe.
Yeah, because they
Yeah.
rescue her head, like if I
Yeah.
recall correctly.
Yeah. She is rebuilt and she works for Magneto again. And also, it is a little confusing. I did see people talking about other Nanny, who is a mutant and it looks like an egg, and also kind of has like a robotic thing going on because she has like sort of a suit that she built. And she also cares for children. So there's there's two mutant related nannies. Although this nanny is just a robot, but yeah, you can never have too many
It's
nannies in X-Men comics.
it's these moments where why I think this one is the more dramatic of the two, because like there are these lines here like when she's feeding Wolverine where she says don't cry, which means that he's crying as he's trying to like reject
Yeah.
this food, which is just very horrifying to me. Or Cyclops liking how her voice sounds and hating that, which is
Right.
also a moment of like, God, that voice, like a marshmallow soaked in honey, because it's like so sickly sweet, but
Yeah.
it's like the only thing he hears, which is also really horrifying to think about because he can't really hear too well because of how his eyes are encased in that
Ugh.
metal. And then Beast getting brushed.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. And her threatening to put bows on him. It's like both horrifying and also hilarious. It's like ultimate dark humor, I feel like, is where we're at right now.
He's got brushable
Um,
hair like a doll.
that's that beautiful silky hair. Gonna put some bows in that hair. Oh my goodness.
There's
So yeah,
also the fact that they're
horrifying.
left alone because she's like, "Oh, I'll be back at lunchtime, and this afternoon before naps, I'll read you a nice story." So it's like they're just being left here in this room with nothing, no stimulation, just alone, except for those little bits of time when she comes to feed them and maybe read to them.
Yeah.
And see, it's 3 hours until lunch, maybe four, and they just have to sit there and they can't do anything. I'm like, this actually is really, really horrifying.
And
It's a lot.
they can't even like talk to each other psychically because
Mhm.
like Phoenix can't use her powers. No one can use their powers. So it's like this is literally horrifying. This is like
It
my
is.
worst nightmare. But
And
don't worry, the
this
storm
part
has a plan.
too, where Storm goes on about how she already had coordination when she was young. And part of that, and this is where they're going to go into more of her backstory with her thieves training. And it's like, it's really sad because it's like, oh, because I was trained from so young to be a thief, I actually have this ability to maybe be able to lock pick us out of here. Which, I mean, for the level of coordination they're supposed to have is ridiculous, but it is very dramatic and just kind of sad, a sad way to harken back to some of the rough things that have happened to Storm.
Yeah, it is. It is, but it's like also really cool. I like it because it's
It
like
is, yeah, like with the
it's
lockpick, like,
sad. It's also like, can we just talk about like the detail, like these panels as well?
mhm,
Like I would say I'm kind of on the fence because I think the reveal of like this is what I'm going to do to you is so dramatic, but I just think this one scene with Storm pulling lockpicks out of her crown and then using them to try to lockpick her like her hold so she can get free is
mhm,
like so dramatic, and like the close-ups here that we get, like the one of her
mhm.
tongue on the lockpick, and it's so dramatic. Also, Can we just say that I feel like Storm is one of those characters who is like the most powerful without powers, because she's not only like a skilled thief, like she can pick locks. She's also like a really good fighter. Like these are things that I feel like I love when Storm has a moment, even though I know sometimes people are upset with like she doesn't have powers. I get it, because she's amazing with her powers. But it's like also Storm is such a badass. Like she doesn't even need her powers to like be a hero.
No, I love Storm because she's always working to improve upon like her weaknesses or what she perceives them to be, and trying to get better, turn things that have like the moments of adversity to her advantage
To
and
her strengths. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. It's like really admirable. It's like I don't know if you read in Marauders that part where Storm also reveals how many knives she has in her hair, but
Mhm,
I just love this idea that she's got like lockpicks in her crown. She's got like
mhm.
knives in her hair. She's just like the most deadly woman walking around. It's awesome.
This panel here, poor Cyclops, where he's like, something's happening. I can taste it. If there were only some way I could help. This is
I know.
and just this memory of you are bound and this door will be locked and bolted when I leave. I cannot help you, child, and I can no longer protect you. If you are still here when I return, you are not the people I thought you were, and you will deserve your fate. Farewell, Aurora. Just oof.
Yeah, it's heavy, man.
And the fact that she's here and she's thinking in her mind, you'd be proud of me. Like remembering like this at the same time. I'm just like, there are so many layers going on here. Like this is just such a strong 2 pages. Stephen
Yeah.
Turner, thank you very much. We were just talking about that. Yes, Storm loves her knives too.
She does. I think I'm trying to remember how many knives she ended up having. Was it like 18 or was it 9? Those are the numbers that are coming to my mind. This is good trivia. This is like someone should put this in a X-Men trivia night. How many knives
How
does
many
Storm keep
knives?
in her hair? Yeah,
What
this
does
is
she have in her
established.
crown? You know?
What does she keep in her crown? Yeah. Um, so I do feel that that is, I mean, it's like, whoa, because it's just like, okay, so this person, although they gave you skills, they also like really mess you up. And then you're just thinking, oh, they'd be so proud of me. Like thinking of it almost fondly while we're reading it. We're like, this is awful that this happened to you.
No, and it follows up
Oh,
with this moment with her
trauma.
disappointment where she's crying and she just gets the crown replaced on her. And they have this moment where it's like, but then piece by piece, the mask cracks. And for only the third time since she was a child, Aurora cries. And I'm just like, this is a lot to be happening in this the plot that's often reduced to a footnote of, oh, and then that one time Magneto like tried to get revenge upon them with this nanny, like ha ha ha. And I'm like, it's actually it's a lot of a lot.
It's actually really heavy. Yeah, it's actually like one of it's the third time in her life at this point as a young woman that Storm has ever cried. 3 times. And do you know how much stuff Storm has also been like that's the other thing. Like let's just take the context of this. This is the third time this woman has cried. Do you know how much stuff Storm has already lived through at this point in her entire life? Like I was like that is so this got so heightened when they said that. I was like, "Oh shit."
No, it's like this is how intense and horrifying this experience is for them. Like it really drives it home. They really take the time to make this plot credible, which I appreciated.
Yeah.
What you have here is Magneto. Then we cut to Magneto, who is just doing everything. He's rebuilding his asteroid. He's got plans upon plans for what he's going to do. He's talking about his powers again, about how they were diluted by his defeats, but no longer, and that the strength has returned. So he's rebuilt his base because now he's charged back up. And he's going to
Right.
have this impregnable fortress to teach all mankind that Magneto is truly master of the world.
Nothing teaches them like an impregnable base. We all know.
But at the same time, he's having to switch between like controlling this and keeping tabs on the lava base. And then he gets this alert that, oh no, like something's gone, like the alarms, they've gone off. I need to go. And it's at this point that for me, the issue kind of it falls apart ever so slightly in this next like little bit here when he returns to the base and finds Nanny, and like Nanny's been like messed up somehow. And it's just that they've just escaped off panel after all of that, after all of the buildup and everything. They've just escaped. And especially this moment down here with Storm, after all of that, I felt was so anticlimactic. I'll pull it up quickly for a moment, but just Cyclops wants me to draw the humidity of the air around Magneto, but the strain of starting work over again with a second lockpick, then freeing the others, left me so weak I can barely stand. I'm like, what? When? How?
Like, wait, what? Also, I'm just like, why was this even then part of the plan? Like, I'd be like, dude, I just freed, and now you also need me to be the crucial part of this plan? Like, we could tap anyone in here, but I guess Storm's doing a lot of heavy lifting. Storm, this is a great Storm issue, though, because Storm does it all.
Yes. Storm does everything. And this time, they're going to have coordination and teamwork. They thought it through. They planned.
They said, you know what? We really need more coordination and teamwork. Like, guys, if we don't have this, like, how are we going to win?
And they are better here. It's like this end fight is a good fight. It is, and it's a nice contrast to the last issue, where you have the last issue where they were all going one at a time and they couldn't figure it out. And for this one, you do see how they work better together and they're more coordinated. You have these cool moments. His ultimate rivalry right here, where he scratches him on the back and he gets called an animal and that he's gonna pay for it.
Oh my gosh.
Grar. Not his outfit, underneath the cape and everything. Ruined. I love the panel where he's reaching back to touch his back, like, ow. Yeah, it's like it hurt.
Ah, you got me. I'm like, don't poke that. That's probably an open wound.
It's gonna make it worse.
No. Just checking. But at least he got him. He got one of those hits in, thank goodness. And Phoenix is just going off. And Magneto wasn't expecting it this time. He can't use the Earth's fields to drain the life out of her. Yeah, the bottleneck is not coming out this time.
We do also have a nice moment where, like, not everything goes entirely according to plan. Colossus charges in here. He's not supposed to. He was supposed to wait on the sidelines in human form because of his whole, covered in metal. But he still manages to be useful in this fight, even though he does just charge in.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, not everything is going according to plan, in the sense that although Phoenix gets in a good hit, she also knocks Magneto into some important things. As you notice, he immediately starts sweating. It gets really hot. He's fighting Colossus, which is obviously also making it harder for him to continue this fight. He's sweaty. He's got to deal with Colossus. Psyche is like, this is not what we planned.
But it's still, it's working somewhat, so let's keep going.
Yeah, and then that's where, fortunately, Hank is able to send Nightcrawler in this fantastic build-up here, where he winds him up so that when Nightcrawler teleports, he, like, flies, which is a cool little team-up moment, honestly.
And they take his helmet off, but it's so that Colossus can punch him in the face. It's not for any psychic things. It's so that Colossus can get a good hit in that they say should have taken a normal man's head off, but Magneto is still on his feet because magnets. He's the master of magnets.
He is the master of magnets, which we all know means that he's got the most durable neck in all of the history of characters. Yeah, I did love that line, though, of like, that would have taken off a normal man's head. I'm like, whoa. Once again, power scaling, guys. Power scaling. Just a reminder, Colossus is really strong. He could take your head off with one punch. Don't get punched by him if you're a normal person, apparently.
I love that he's still blaming the X-Men for this. He's like, it's your fault this is happening. Phoenix Blast destroyed the main control console. Not that I trapped him down here.
If you hadn't trapped them down here, none of this would be happening.
But
All of it's already been established earlier in this issue that the lava base is where Magneto keeps some of his most important files.
yes. And
When
so
he's up
but
on Asteroid M, he's like, I keep so many important files in my lava
I
base.
sure hope that nothing happens to it.
I hope nothing happens.
But and so now they think that maybe they can convince Magneto to force bubble them out of there. Like, we can get a magnetic force bubble and we can get out of here. But he is not interested because Magneto walks alone.
Magneto walks alone. Also, I love how they're like, maybe we could just like say to Magneto, like, get us out of here, Magneto, or else. Magneto's like, yeah, I'm not doing that.
I like how they're discussing this in front of him too. They're like, what if we maybe threaten him? And I'm like, he's right there.
He's right there, and he's like, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in this. Magneto, where Magneto walks, he walks alone. So even the rebuke is so dramatic. It's so great. So anyways, lava comes in everywhere. And everyone's trying to help each other and save each other, but it's also like, is there any point? Because we're all just going to be devoured by lava. And the only person, obviously, that has lava immunity is Magneto because of magnets. Clearly.
But what's important here is that we establish that he's lost a lot of his plans, for one thing, because that's where the important files were, and they weren't backed up on those other sweet bases that he had other places.
Yeah, so now he's back to square one. This is why you should always back up your files.
Yes, across multiple
Another
bases.
Lesson. Yeah, across multiple bases. Although, I guess it's the 70s. That's probably not as easy to do as it is now. But it is a life lesson we can learn now in the future, having reread this issue. Back up your files, everyone. If you got them open right now, make sure you back those up.
Because he says it will take him months before he's able to resume work. Also because his powers are now a bit drained. So he's not quite as powerful. And I'm not sure if he's going to stay a bit less powerful or what we're going to do entirely with that. But for the moment, he is a bit less powerful. And he also has to redo everything. So that's a sad time for him.
Yeah, he's like, don't they know? This is awful. It's going to take me months. Meanwhile, they're presumed dead at this moment. But I like how Magneto's like, one of his biggest concerns is just like, oh man, I'm going to have to spend a few months. Look how sad he looks in this helmet panel.
They even say there's sadness in his eyes as the volcano explodes behind him. The work and memories of a lifetime had been stored there.
Why would you keep them in a lava base? I don't know.
Now they're gone.
You're smart enough to build a lava base, but you didn't think, what if the lava gets in here?
It made it sound like he had like his baby photos in there, like his kids' photos, like everything was in this lava base.
All those photos of Lorna that he's like, I didn't take these. These were the robot, but I keep them anyways, just for fun. Maybe one day they'll be relevant. I like how he says, even in death, X-Men, you seek to thwart my plans. Like he's like, their death even was like a slight against him. Like he's like, you died just to mess with me, didn't you? This was all part of the plan. Just to mess with my work. How dare you? But fortunately, they're not all dead.
No, and we get our setup for the next arc with Jean and her strategically ripped Phoenix costume.
Strategically ripped, yeah.
It's ripped in all the right places. So.
Oh yeah.
And
it's
so
ripped for our amusement.
Yes, for our enjoyment. Yes. So we have that, and we have a to be
and classic Jean faints as well.
Yes, we get a nice Jean feint in here. But so is Beast, exhausted. Because nobody has any strength left.
I mean, yeah, Beast tries to go, but he's like, oh man, I'm tired too. So at least she's not alone fainting, which I did enjoy, that they both faint in the snow. And I guess we have to wait to see what happens next. Which also, I was like, wait, did you only say these 2 issues? And I was like, oh, you did. And I'm like, dang, because I want to read what happens next. So I'm probably going to continue from this point for a bit, because I'm just enjoying the wild Byrne Claremont collab.
It's quite the era. It is very exciting. Like, it's just a kind of go with it moment. And this is like from the carnival to this and then like beyond. I'm like, you know what?
It's like nonstop. Like, imagine this is your life. Like, we were just in a carnival, we were brainwashed, then we went to a lava base, then we were like not able to move our bodies because we were trapped with like the cognitive abilities of a 6-year-old. And
6
then
months.
6-month-old, even worse. And then we escaped, and now we're just in the snow. And I'm sure it's not going to end. I'm sure they're about to go somewhere else crazy. I wonder if Charles will come help them. Does Charles come help them?
Or
I
if
don't
he's still
know.
enjoying his vacation. It's his
Well,
time, okay?
it is his time. But I like that at least he was concerned. We cut to him and he was like, "I'm concerned. I don't know what's happening, and like maybe I should do something."
But at the same
But
time, we're here
I'm just
making
concerned.
memories.
We're here making memories.
We're
I
making
don't
better
think
memories.
also, I feel like Lilandra would be like, look, just like, I mean, she's very much of the mind of like, maybe just let them figure it out. Like,
Yeah, because she was like, "What's wrong with you? You seem a little tense. You're distracted from us on our trip. Why is that?"
why is that? He's like, well, I think the X-Men could be in danger because I can't sense them. And that seems concerning. And she's like, or they're just fine.
Like, that's also an option.
Yeah. She's like, have you ever considered maybe they just dropped off the grid? Like, maybe they don't want you sensing them all the time, Charles, huh? You ever thought about that?
It's like they're never fine. That's never the case. But maybe this time they're fine.
Maybe this is the one time when they don't need my help.
So I'll have to ask the chat, of the two issues, which did you find the most interesting, the most dramatic? And for you, Amanda, which issue do you like the most of these two?
I mean, so I like 112, I think, in terms of just like the overall pacing and the way the story is structured the most. But I do think 113 is more dramatic, even though it's a little wonky. But I like the jank.
113 isn't paced as well as 112 is, where it feels like it flows a bit better. But I feel like 113 has the more interesting character moments with those bits with Storm, or even though we are meandering a bit, just like what Magneto is doing and planning. I'm like, I'm enjoying seeing that he's resetting up his base and all of those things. But it has that one moment that just irks me, where it is that, oh, and for the third time ever, she cries. By the way, they saved themselves off panel. We don't need to see that. It was super dramatic and cool, and like she got herself out and she saved them too. But you don't need to see that.
We're just gonna skip that part.
The robot. It was fine.
I mean, honestly, that in and of itself probably could have been the whole issue if they wanted to do that, and I probably would have read that and been like, sweet. And then we could have had Magneto like comes and fights them, and that could have been a whole issue. But yeah, we're just gonna skip that. We're just gonna go like from Storm having trauma and crying and like just barely getting the things to work to it totally worked out, and now everyone's fighting.
And it's like, we also planned and we're coordinated. Let's go. This time's not going to be like last time where we couldn't figure it out.
It's only going to be a little like last time, but it's still going to work in our favor, except for the part that we didn't think through. What about fighting in a lava base if lava gets in? But
yeah, they didn't plan the escape from the lava base. It was like defeat Magneto and then we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. That part, we're just going to roll with it. Which maybe wasn't the best plan in a lava base, but in all fairness, I feel like, one, how do you even plan for that? And two, I mean, you're just concerned about not being trapped in that scenario where you can't speak, can't move, can't use your powers, and are just trapped for hours alone, sitting in your own poop. So
yeah, it's because it established, I think they were there for maybe about a week because because Lilandra mentions like to Charles that he's been off all week. He's been tense. And then he's like, oh, it's because I can't sense them anymore. So I'm like, how long have they been? It's been at least a few days. So
I feel like if it's more than 48 hours, Charles should have been like, I should file a missing persons report. Like, this is not normal for me. I'm usually able to check in with them all the time. I do it every day. I do it multiple times every day, I'm assuming. Knowing Charles. He's very like, I don't know. He's a very hands-on parent. That's what I would say about Charles.
And you think about Storm sitting there for all those days trying to think what she can do. And if she has enough coordination to like knock the thing off, just days of planning for that moment to try and get the lockpick. It's so much. It's really intense.
It is.
It's a lot more than I feel like was warranted for the the quirk that was Defender 16 of haha, now they're babies and they shall live again. It's just funny because the Brotherhood get like one line mentioned, I think it's Champions, where it's like we also were re-aged, and then they just leave it alone. But for Magneto, it becomes this huge thing that they keep referring back to. Even in the Krakoan era, they refer back to like this moment was the moment of the schism between the two of them because of Moira and like messing with his DNA. And it's so fascinating for what I feel was very much just a throwaway like Defenders ending of like, look, now they're babies. It just keeps coming back more intense each time.
Yeah, every time it's like ramped up. Like, who knows? Next time we visit it, what it'll be like. It's going to be like it was the end of the world when that happened. It was the day that the beginning of the end started. The babies. Also, I did go back to count how many knives, not just in Storm's hair. And I know people were like, how does Storm keep blades in her hair with the wind and stuff? She has her hair up in like a ponytail at this point, so I'm pretty sure she can just stick one in near that and you're good. She's got
if your
one
hair
in
is
her
thick
hair.
enough, if your hair is
You
thick,
can keep
it's pretty
knives in
easy
your
to
hair.
like jam things in your hair.
Yeah, I would agree with that. As someone with thick hair, I could keep objects in my hair and they would probably just stay there. Especially if you're like using any hairspray on top of that, like that's going to be in there for life.
Have you ever had the experience where like you stick hair clips in there and forget about them? And then it's just like,
and then like a few days later, you're like, oh, this one I missed. Yeah,
it's like, what is this? That. What's in my hair?
What is that? Oh yeah, clip. Thought I got them all. I know. Bobby pins are notorious for I lose them in my hair all the time. But yeah, so the total is 8 blades. In her boots, on her costume, and she has one that she pulls out of her hair. And this is, by the way, in Marauders issue number 20, if anyone wanted to check it out. That's the Dugan Marauders, volume 1, and it is Storm's like goodbye issue because she's leaving the team, and they all are guessing how many knives she keeps on her throughout the flashbacks to cool stuff that Storm has done. Yeah. I feel like a Storm appreciation issue. It's a good one.
I feel like this moment deserves like a flashback because this is indeed 113 is a very strong Storm moment.
It is. I love this. I think, that's the other thing that I really love 113 for. I just feel like it's such a strong Storm issue. And I just love when we go into other elements of characters that are like beyond their powers. Like, I do really love that Magneto has the lava base that he built himself. That's like, what? But okay. And then for Storm, just going back into, her whole time being a thief and being like a master lockpicker and being like, I'm rusty, but like I still have these skills. I was trained since I was a little kid. And just reliving every time we go to Storm's like childhood, I'm like, it's just reliving like years of tragedy after tragedy, I feel like.
And just the way that she takes it and turns it, I'm just like, that's such a, it's such an impressive part of the Storm.
That is like a superpower that Storm has, I would say. It is like nothing, she doesn't let things defeat her. She just tries to use them as a strength and make herself stronger over time with everything. And she doesn't even, it also makes me think of when she became the regent on Arakko. And the fight that she has there where she has to fight her younger self through Nameless or whatever, the queen who's like a shapeshifter from Arakko who rules before her. And then she's like, well, I'm going to take you at like your prime and I'm going to beat you. And then Storm is basically like, I don't need to be at my prime to like beat myself. Like that's, if you think that's the case, like you've grossly misunderstood like who I am as a person. And I'm just like, yeah. Or when she has to fight even without her powers and she's so fierce when she's fighting Tarn during this era as well, the Krakoan era. And she's so scary that Tarn basically is like, okay, like I'm not gonna, you're
no, thank you.
You're crazy. I respect you. You're an insane person. And like takes away all of her beauty and she just like doesn't even care. Like Storm is just such a tough customer. And I love that about her. And yet she's still so compassionate. She has all that and she can be so compassionate as well.
Storm's just really complex.
She is.
Stephen Turner, thank you very much. One thing I missed during Krakoa that we got during the Claremont era and older eras was more slice of life, non-mission moments, shopping, dancing, etc. There is a lot of fun to that era, I find, with like the AB just like the A/B hit of like setting up those plots and then the subplots and the ones that come to fruition, although not all do. But the ones that do, when it is like the 1-2 setup, it works really well. And it does allow you to have those kind of moments that do feel more slice of lifey, but are also can be building to something else. And that is a lot of fun. I do like this era.
I do like when those things are woven in, because it just gives us more of a sense of who the characters are as well. I agree with that. And I feel like I was thinking about this the other day. So like I'm raising funds for like a 90s Rogue cosplay. And I wanted to, it's like on Kofi, right? So you can change it so that it says like, buy me a blank, buy me a coffee, buy me a whatever. So I put buy me a power set, which every time I change it, I feel like I confuse everyone. I do it because I think it's fun, but then people are like, is this what I'm supposed to do? Is this right? But I was trying to think of for Rogue, like what even is something that Rogue likes that I could put there? And I was like, I don't even know. Like, I feel like I need to go back and read more of this stuff, because this is the era when you really get a sense for just who people are outside of just having powers and being heroes, you know? It's like, I don't even know what Rogue is into. Like, what is Rogue's favorite movie? That's what I want to know. What is Rogue's favorite movie? Does anyone have that trivia? I don't know. I just want to get to know all the characters better. Buy you a Gambit. Seriously, though, I do need that. Yeah, that's true. It's a good one, Steven.
Are you hyped for the From the Ashes era, From the Ashes 2? Because I know there was other From the Ashes, but From the Ashes, new X-Men, new everything.
I am hype.
Which ones are you which ones are you the most looking forward to?
Yeah, let me pull up the like lineup. I'm really looking forward to Dazzler because I'm a big Dazzler fan. I also actually like, although I was like disappointed that it's not an ongoing, I kind of like that it's a mini, because I'm like, then it can be self-contained, and if it does well, it can potentially go on. But at least that means that we have a plan for like one story that we're gonna get. So even if it doesn't go well, it's like at least I'll get a full story, as opposed to it just being like, and then it ends. It's like, dang it. But yeah, I mean, there's so many things now that they're adding. I'm actually really excited for NYX for Nyx. I feel like that's gonna be really cool. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited for Gail Simone doing X-Men and Rogue leading, and it being in New Orleans. I was like, sign me up for that. I'm excited for the Phoenix, the Phoenix stuff we're gonna be getting as well. I don't know. I'm surprised at how excited I am for this era, because I really loved Krakoa, but I haven't finished it. So people keep asking me about Fall of X stuff, and I'm like, guys, I'm not done. I'm not done. I'm very behind on my Fall of X. I really do want to read everything before I jump into From the Ashes, but I might have to like kind of read both at the same time. We'll see, because it's coming up really fast.
It's flying. That's the thing. I'm like, how are all these things already? I'm already like accosted with absolute power over at DC. I'm like, it's too soon. Everything's just coming so fast.
How are you liking Absolute Power? Because I kind of want to read it. Like, it kind of hooked me a little bit, but I'm kind of just tired of Amanda Waller, because I feel like she's just been doing everything.
And I'm kind of over it. The wall?
Yeah. I was talking about it in one of my videos, because I did a video on Absolute DC or DC Absolute. It's confusing. That rumor that has been flying around.
Yes.
And one of the things I was talking about was Absolute Power. And I was talking about how I read the Free Comic Book Day. And I was like, oh, I'm kind of intrigued, but I'm also just kind of like tired. Like, why is everything Amanda Waller? Like, can we please? And then someone responded and was like, obviously it has to be. Like, if you'd been reading DC, you would know. And I'm like, oh, I know. I'm just saying that's why I'm saying this. I was like, no, I'm aware that Amanda Waller we're building up to the things, but
and
why?
Like also for the synergy, because of like Gunverse and like that kind of stuff. We are doing a tad like not aggressive, like everything has to line up, but I can see why I think they're
doing it in a nice light way. I just wish it wasn't always Amanda Waller, because I really like Amanda Waller, but I feel like when you have too much of the wall, it takes away. It takes away, because then I'm not surprised by anything. I'm just like, oh yeah. And I want with Amanda Waller, I want to be shocked.
So far, I'm liking it for a strange reason. which is I like the flow of how the issues that are being forced to tie into it are tying into it. It doesn't feel as awkward as some of the past events I've read where it's just like smash cut and like now we have to do this. And like, yeah, obviously all of the ongoings are going to have to do this, but this feels more structured and planned than some of the past events. And so for that, I'm I'm liking it. Like I'm thinking about Green Lantern specifically because I've been keeping up with Green Lantern. The way that Green Lantern wove its way back towards like now Hal he has to be here because we have to do this absolute power thing. I actually liked that. And the way that they wrapped up the failsafe arc and that kind of stuff. Like, okay, we're ending this so that we can move. It feels a bit smoother. And so far I'm like,
Listen.
okay, I'm okay. I'm here for that. And I'm interested to see where it goes. Like I am a bit tired of like event, but at the same
Yeah.
time, I am kind of intrigued by this one. And so far, the main books that I've read, I've liked. So
That's good. Okay, maybe I should check out some more Absolute Power because I'm like the story did hook me. Like I was like the story itself I'm interested in. I'm just a little tired of Amanda Waller.
it's
Yeah,
fair.
what Matthew was saying is my exactly this is exactly my concern. This is my concern.
Thank you very much. Amanda Waller's gonna be the new Joker. Oh gosh. There's gonna be
Yeah,
three. There's gonna be three Amanda Wallers.
I can't.
Oh.
I can't deal with it. I can't. And like, here's the other thing too. It's like it's not that I don't like the Joker, right? Like I do. It's the same thing. I'm like I really like the Joker. I really think the Joker's a really cool villain. But when we do
Mhm.
too much with the Joker,
And
there is
yet
such a thing
I'm
as too much
always
Joker.
there. I'm like, I
Yeah.
feel the same way. But they have that thing that's coming out, Joker the World, where it's gonna be like, oh, different Joker takes from around the world. I'm like, I want that. And I'm part of the problem because I'm gonna be there for
That does
that.
sound interesting. That's like when they had the series with Joker and Jim and they like have to like solve a mystery together.
Mhm.
What was that? That was that Black Label, that book?
No, there
I
was a
forget.
Joker series. It was just
Oh
like a
yeah, it
Joker
was just the
solo,
Joker series.
and then
Yeah.
the punchline was the backup in that one.
Yes. So that series, when that was announced, I was so like anti that. I was like, oh God, a Joker series. Here we go again. Oh my God, I'm so over it. And then I started hearing about it and like, I didn't read all of it, but it's on my reading list because I
Mhm.
was hearing about like, oh, this is kind of what happens. And like Jim Gordon is in it and they kind of have to like team up. And then there's the punchline back. And then I was like, okay, well, this actually sounds really good. And everyone's like, yeah, actually, it is really good. I know you're tired and like we're all tired, but also we're all also really into this Joker series. So I don't know. And I guess that is also kind of the thing with Amanda Waller, right? It's like I sometimes I'm like, I'm just tired, but I'm also intrigued. So, okay, I have the X-Men up. So
Mhm.
I will also add, I'm very interested in Wolverine as well, because it's going to be Saladin Ahmed. But I don't know if I should keep Wolverine because so what I usually do is Uptown Duck, who is someone that I do a lot of content over on my channel with. We read X-Men together and we split the books. So when the books are announced, we're like, oh, I'll take this one and then you can
Mhm.
have this one. And we like draft our books. And he was like, are you going to give up? Like, are you going to continue with Wolverine or what are you thinking? And I'm like, oh, I don't know yet. And I was like, why? Do you want Wolverine? And he was like, I think I might want it. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to keep it. But then I also really want to read Storm. And I also really want to read Phoenix because it's Stephanie Phillips.
You could give him
So,
the Wolverine dinosaur one. I mean, then he can have Wolverine with dinosaurs.
oh my gosh. But do I want the Wolverine dinosaur one? That's the other thing. Because that's also something that I'm interested in. This is the problem that I have. It's like I want all of the books.
Mhm.
But yeah, that is I think going to be really interesting sort of going over. And I wonder if it's going to be like a little bit more horror because I know Ahmed kind of likes that realm and I'm kind of
Mhm.
hoping that's where we go with it because I feel like Wolverine is a horror book. I would be so into that idea. So I hope that's where we go. But I've read like a lot of Wolverine. Like Wolverine
Mhm.
is kind of my guy and I read all the stuff.
Well, then you can't give him
Uh
up. I mean, you gotta continue on the streak.
I know, but I want to go with Storm. I really want to check out I don't know this writer as well. I don't know. There's too many good books. I will say the only thing I think I'm not super interested in is X-Force. But
Oh, really?
yeah, but I don't think I've ever really been interested in X-Force. Like
Mhm.
it's not my I don't know. What are you
Not your
feeling from
team?
this? Not my team. Yeah, not my
I
people.
am.
Or I haven't read the run that's made of my team yet. Yeah.
I'm a bit overwhelmed. I'm like, there's a lot. There is a lot of a lot. And I'm thinking about trying to keep up with all of it. And I'm just like,
Remember when they said we're gonna do like these 3 books and then like a couple like other series, and now
and then
they're
this
like,
went ham, and
now it's like 15 bucks. I'm like, okay, so now we're gonna have to read a million things again at the beginning. I really wish we were starting with like 5 books, honestly.
That's me. I'm like, I wish there was a bit less, because I already am keeping up with a couple of things that I'm just like quietly reading on the side, like a bunch of the Ultimates things. I'm like, I'm already reading like a lot of things at the same time. I'm planning to
Blood Hunt is also still happening.
Are you reading Blood Hunt?
I'm not.
Ish.
I'm collecting it, some of it.
I
keep seeing tie-ins that I want to get too. Like I keep seeing things like, so when Midnight Suns has the tie-in, I was like, oh, that looks really cool. And then I didn't end up getting it. And then I was like shooting myself in the foot later because I was like, that looks really cool. I kind of want to grab it. And then I didn't pick it up. And then after I was talking to Duck about it, and he's like, oh, everyone is in love with it online. And I was like, I should have just grabbed it. I should have known. I should have known it was going to be good. I just had a sense and I was really interested. So yeah, I think I'm going to wait until it's kind of like all done and then go through and like read it all that way. So I don't have to wait for anything. But I feel like it's an event. I might need to collect the trades of it because it is Blood Hunt. It's vampires. I love vampires. And it's Jen McKay. So I feel like everything that I've seen of it, I've really liked. But that's happening as we're going to be launching this new X-Men thing. So then it's like, how many Marvel things like
can you do?
I'd like to read from another publisher sometimes. I want to read more DC stuff. There's a bunch of indie series that I'm reading that I'm like, I feel like that's the struggle.
No, it's like sometimes
there's too many books.
I've got to take a break because I also love talking about other stuff as well. I'm like, I still want to talk about Redcoat and a bunch more of the unnamed like universe and Ghost Machine and all of those things. I want to do a full review of RAMGOD, who I talked with the authors about their book the other day. I want to do a full review when it finally drops and all of those things. And I'm like, Marvel and DC, I love you, but at the same time, like, let me breathe. Let me live.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes they're trying to suffocate us with books. Like they're like, here, read like 30 books from me. And I'm like, guys, like I need you to chill.
I also feel like reading the solicits has warped me because I love doing it. Those are some of my favorite streams to do. I'm going to do the DC ones like later in the week as a stream just because I think it's fun. I like to keep up with some of the news. Like they did some more details on Plastic Man's getting like a body horror, like mini series with Black Label and stuff like that. I'm like, all of that's fun, but those really aren't meant for just like fans or consumers, because like when you do read them, they're so far in advance that I already feel like events are over before they start. Like that's how I feel like with Blood Hunt, because I already read like the next list. It's like now that Blood Hunt's over. So like in my head, I'm like, now that Blood Hunt is over.
You're like, Blood Hunt's done, but it's like it's gonna still be like, how long is that event going on for? It's a summer event,
August,
right? Yeah. So by August, let's just talk about that. So by August, we're gonna have we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 X books that will have launched.
That's a
through
lot.
August. Like that is a lot on top of Blood Hunt. And it's like, guys, like please, like I love these things. I just would like more breathing room. That's all that I'm asking for. I don't know. Maybe it's too much. Also, I want to read more Star Trek stuff. Also, there's new Star Wars books that are starting now because a lot of the other stuff is finished. So then I want to read more Star Wars comics. I want to go back and read High Republic stuff because the Acolyte is happening right now. And now I'm like, kind of like, ooh, I kind of want to like get into like all this High Republic stuff. And they keep advertising the comics and my Star Wars comics. So like maybe I should grab the trades. Blood Hunt only has 2 issues left, says ChemDog.
It's like time is flying.
It ends next month. Oh, okay, so it is gonna end in July. Is that what you guys are saying? I feel like isn't there stuff that runs through though to August, like with the denouement for that event? Maybe
well,
not.
in the August solicits, they were all like, now that Blood Hunt is done.
Okay, good. So that's when it ends. It ends in August. So there's only a little bit of overlap then. So then if it's in July, we'll only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 books?
I already,
6.
I already know which X book I'll be talking about though, which is the influencer one, of course. Like that's gonna be my August. It's gonna be like Punchline is gonna be in the one thing.
Yep.
Because that's the Gotham City Sirens coming out weekly. So that's going to be a bit of a challenge, but a fun challenge. I like challenging myself to keep up with things weekly, even though it's hard. And at the time, I hate it. But then I'm like, yeah, I did it. Achievement. Get a little, video game trophy achievement. In
You
the
know
corner.
what though? It'll be a challenge for everyone because it'll also be a challenge for everyone on that team to get it to you weekly. So
Yes.
you never know. The one thing that I like about when someone's like, we're going to do a weekly book is I'm like, well, the plus side is that if they struggle, then I don't have to feel so bad because then I'll get some more time to read it. So it's like kind of a win-win. It's like if you keep up with the schedule, then I get a new book every week, which is cool. But if you don't keep up with the new schedule, then I get a break now and then when we fall behind.
I'm so excited to see which punchline we're getting. I'm like, what punchline are we going? Because punchline, depending upon who's writing her, can be a vastly different person. So I'm like, which punchline am I going to get from Leah Williams? We'll see.
Oh yeah, it is Leah Williams.
Yeah.
That
So it's
I feel like
probably
it's gonna
going to
be
be
really cool.
I think it's going to be
Whatever it
very
is.
comedy forward, which concerns me slightly because while Gotham City Sirens, the original one, did have comedy elements, that wasn't the sole part of it. They were there, but they weren't the full focus. So I'm like, is this going to be one of those things where it flips it comedy forward first? And if so, how am I going to feel about it? We shall see, because I will be there. So we'll see how it ends up working. I'm down to like see what happens. So it's going to be interesting.
I mean, I do kind of love that like Punchline is also going to be one of the sirens, but I also kind of am also nervous about that. Just in
I
general.
hope she's not. I hope they just fight her. I'm like, please just fight her. Like she's so genuinely evil. Like it's just like testing her creations on the homeless and on like crowded subway cars and purposely selling drugs to children. I'm like, there's a lot of like punchline that's not made for like, woo, she's fun and quirky. I'm like, she's not. She's really
Yeah. I just feel like it's too, like, I mean, I think she could be that at some point, but I feel like it's too soon in terms of her character evolution for us to put her there. And so that was the thing. Because I do remember when this was announced and I was looking at it and I'm like, ooh, okay, I really like Leah Williams, so I'm excited about that. But I was like, but I'm nervous about Punchline being included because I'm just not sure how she fits on Gotham City Sirens
I'm like, we'll
where
see.
she's at right now. But I'm happy she's being featured because I do like her as a character.
I'm happy to see her. That's my thing. I'm like, she's one really cool breakout story away. I'm like, we just need that one. I'll be there. I'll keep her alive. Just, it's been years.
I'm interested in having her. Is this the moment? I don't know.
Doug, thank you very much. Says, I would love a Redcoat review. I would love to do a Redcoat review. I am caught up, so I just need the time to be able to do it. Did you end up reading it? Because I know that you were interested in it.
I haven't read it yet, but it is on my list of things that I'm interested. I also want to read Rook Exodus since both you and Duck have been singing that book's praises, so I want to read that one too. And I think of the Ghost Machine stuff. I'm waiting for the family one to come out. I'm really interested in that book with the time traveling family from the future. I think that's going to be really cool. So yeah, I do have to read it. But everyone's been telling me that of the books, like Redcoat is probably going to be my book.
Because you like all the history stuff. So
I like history stuff. I like the idea of immortal beings or people out of time. I love stuff like that. I always think that's really fun. And I mean, this guy also seems like he's kind of one of those like a rough around the edges character, like kind of.
I like to call him Disaster Immortal, which is like the opposite of the Suave Immortal.
Yeah, that's my favorite. I love people that are just kind of a hot mess running around doing stuff. I think that is really my vibe I love for characters. So yeah, I'm
really excited for when you read it because I want to talk to you about it because I have complicated feelings about it. So it's going to be interesting. It's like there are things I really love and then there are things that are physically hurting me, but that's just because of like my dislike of a certain specific trope. So I'm curious as to what you're going to think of it when you finally read it.
As soon as I read it, I will send you a text and be like, I have read, and now we may discuss. I'm excited to check it out. I feel like there's another series that was announced that's coming back. I think initially they were saying June, and now they're saying August. But I don't know if you've checked out Black Cloak. Have you read that book?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you should check it out. It's really good. It's like fantasy, but it's like what kind of happens in like a almost futuristic magical world combined in this fantasy world after we've like fought the big great threat. Like what happens to people after that, and then like what are the problems? And that series was only 7 issues initially, and then it was like on a hiatus because you know you need to like fund it yourself because it's Image. It's a big part of it.
Yes.
It's Kelly Thompson, and it's coming back in August. So I'm very excited.
Oh, also August.
Also August. Great. Another thing in August. I think it's near the end of August. So the one thing I'm like is like at least with X-Men, I'll like have everything set up. I'll be grooving hopefully at that point. And I've been waiting for this book. I think we've been off for like more than a year. So that's my favorite thing though about indie books is I feel like with indie books, it's like when you take a break, the breaks just feel like they just heighten when something returns. Like I'm so excited for it. And with Big Two, we don't get that as often.
I think it depends how long the break is. Like you don't want to lose steam. Be Saga. You don't want to like break that long or then become.
I think Saga can be Saga, but you have to be Saga to do that. Like you have to be at that level.
No, I feel like the last one, like especially because of where it hiatus, like really hurt it because especially just in terms of how people talk about it.
Right.
Like they just don't talk about it the same way they used to. Right. I'm like, I remember when that was just like everywhere. Like, I even have still some of like the old like t-shirts and stuff that I got like back during like the Saga heyday. And I'm just like, it's just not the same.
It is true. Sometimes when you have like Radiant Black, I feel like has been pushed a few times. And like a lot of my Massiverse stuff from Image is like delayed. But I also know that I think Kyle Higgins, who like is kind of the head of all of that and is the writer for Radiant Black and oversees it all. He also, I think, had like a knee surgery, so he's like recovering. So I'm like, it's probably related to that. Like that probably has delayed some stuff. So I'm just like patiently waiting, but I'm like, oh, like I really want to know what happens next, and I feel like it's been so long.
I feel like when
I hope the steam doesn't get lost.
I feel like when you know why the break is happening, not that you're entitled to know, but I feel like when you do know, it does. Helpful. It is helpful because you're like, oh, you know, life things.
Life things. Or like when someone's like, I want to get back to this, but like I have another project right now, so I just have to like do this, and then like we're gonna come back to it later. Like even when Black Cloak ended on issue 7, it was basically like we don't know if we're gonna come back. We'd love to come back. We love that everyone loves this, but like let's be real. Like comics cost money, so we gotta figure that out. Yeah.
Stephen Turner, thank you very much. Storm solo happening while she is in the Avengers book alongside Black Panther going to be interesting. Avengers team is so powerful with Carol, Wanda, and Storm. It is a pretty stacked team.
This is true. I will say the one thing I was a little bit disappointed about was that they were like, oh, like one of the X-Men is going to be on the Avengers. And I was like, oh, who will it be? I'm so excited. And then they were like, it's Storm. And I was like, oh. We kind of already did that, but like,
who were you hoping
I mean, we didn't fully do it. I don't know. Someone weird. I'm always hoping for someone weird. I was like, give me someone random that's like I would never think of on the Avengers. But I mean, Storm is a great pick because Storm is, if I was going to draft someone, if it's my Avengers team, definitely a person I would pick because she's so good. But also, what kind of threats will they have?
Well, you're going to have to ramp up the threats if you're going to have that kind of team. Otherwise, it's just not going to be fair. It's just going to be mean.
You got to have something that's interesting that's going to be... But here's the thing. I also feel like with the Avengers, it's hard because you don't want to go too grandiose the entire time. Because then when you do that, I feel like it kind of takes away from the pacing of the overall series. So it's like you have to pick your moments... But the threats have to be creative enough that it's like, I believe that like, oh, wow, this is a problem. And our team is going to have to really try to beat this. Whether that's something that's really big or something that's small, but just like really weird.
Yeah.
Like I did like in Blood Hunt, how when the vampires started like coming from everywhere, or when the dark portals were like, opening up. And then Iron Man's just saying to Wanda, like, can't you just like close the portals? Like, Wanda, close the portals. And Wanda's like, that's not how this works.
Not anymore, not currently.
She was like, Tony, why don't you just use your suit to close the portals? And he's like, well, I can't do that. And she's like, exactly. She was like, not.
He was
He's like, well, I
hoping
thought
for,
you could magic it. Like, can you
he was
magic
hoping
this?
for no more portals.
Yeah.
You know?
He's like, it seems like a magic thing. Like, Wanda, you go. And she's like, Tony, please. So there are things where you can say, you know, like, you can add the idea of like, this is something that's just, we've never seen this before or whatever. But I think you do run into these problems of how do we make it feel like something that's new and exciting and like unstoppable without making it feel the same every time, or making it feel so big that I just kind of am like, okay, another alien invasion. Here we go again.
You're making me think about something that I am excited for, but it's like not a strong excitement, but just a passive kind of like baseline excitement, which is like the eventual return of the Justice League, which I know is happening soon because it's been a while since they've been about. And I do always enjoy the Justice League. I was just thinking about like the big bombastic things that they'll be able to come back and do, and just curious to see who the roster will be and all that stuff. I'm like, yes, please.
I think that'll be very exciting. Honestly, I think I am more excited for a Justice League return than I am excited for Avengers, even though no disrespect to Avengers. I think, and I also think that is a really cool team. And I do think if you write it well, it could be freaking amazing because I love the lineup. But yeah, Justice League has been gone for a minute, so it's just been Titans on the scene.
Yes, they've been doing
I've also
Titans.
been loving all the Titan stuff, so
I never agreed with the idea that you needed to remove the Justice League to elevate the Titans. And I was just like, I get it from like a strategic standpoint of like, well, maybe more people will buy it if they're not there. I'm like, or they just might buy neither. Like it's a strategy. We'll see how it pans out.
It's a choice. I mean, you know what though? I think it hypes the Justice League when they return. Which
it's true because they have been gone for a while. This has been a bit of a gap.
I've been liking it because I don't think necessarily that the Justice League needs to leave to heighten the Titans. I think the Titans would do well either way because they're the Titans. But I do like the idea of just giving them that little bit of a push of like, you know, you've always kind of been, because this is the reality, right? If we have the Titans in the Justice League, I do think the Titans are always going to kind of somewhat be in the Justice League
in the shadows. Yeah.
So I think it is important to give them a moment, like just to show that like they got this by themselves. I'm glad they did it just to show that like the Titans can stand on their own, even though, did we all already know that? Yeah, we did. But I don't know if the Titans knew that. So I think it's nice to give the characters that.
Here's my dream. In my dream world, what I wish had happened, and it couldn't happen now, but what I wish had happened is when they had died, the Justice League in Dark Crisis, I wish they'd actually been gone.
Yes.
I'm like,
I agree.
That would have been really powerful. Like if we actually were like, no, like we're committing. They're gone. We're going to run with just these people. I'm like, that would have been really cool.
And then what if we just had to live that and then we're still in that right now? And then they're like, guess what, guys? Finally.
It's Absolute been like power, a year. They're coming back. You know?
Then it would have been much more exciting. I agree. I don't know, like, I mean, I know why they did that.
Yeah, because I know why.
Story. But it was so anticlimactic. It was like, they were like, oh, they're dead. Just kidding, they're not. I was like, oh, okay, immediately? Okay.
That's the thing. I'm like, it would have been cool, but I get that they didn't want to potentially take the hit of, you know, like, but Batman's not there. There's no you know.
But like, what will happen if Batman's not there? I'm like, will the other things will be there? You have lots of other stuff. I mean, it is also that idea of, I feel like, you know, with our original heroes, there's this mentality that we don't feel like we can trust like any characters that are newer. And like, that's the thing, like all the other characters that you have to play with are so established too. So it's like, you still have all these characters that have been around for decades, but you're afraid that like without Batman or Superman, the whole thing's going to fall apart.
It's like, even though I like what Green Lantern really picked up, I would like where Green Lantern is, like Kyle is just kind of there, like all addled and out of control. I'm like, oh, Kyle.
Oh, Kyle.
One day, Kyle. I know they're building to something with Kyle though, but I'm like, oh, poor Kyle. Currently, he's just like out of control and he's blasting energy and needs help. So Matthew Prower, thank you very much. Inspirations for your DC character voices. It varies. It varies. I mean, the most obvious one, the one I do the most, is the Christian Bale Batman. It will never not be funny to me. I know, like, I don't care. It's been years. I just find it really funny. Especially to do, even though it's not accurate, and sometimes I do attempt like an Adam West, which isn't very good for like the Silver Age. It's funny to do the like out of place Bale voice for that. Superman's just kind of a generic like transcontinental like classic American accent. Supergirl's Marilyn Monroe. I don't know why that just happened.
I mean, they both got that blonde. I feel like there's a similar vibe. I could see it.
It happened, I think, because I was doing the Magic Totem story with Jimmy. And it felt appropriate at the time. And I just kept using it.
And then you were like, oh, that's the voice now. That's where we're at.
That's just what we're doing. So, but it varies. Like some people have distinct and some people it's just the vibe I feel at the time. And some people, it depends when I'm recording. So sometimes I don't have time or it's just like I'm recording and I have like 20 minutes because my son is sleeping or something. I'm like, you got 20 minutes, go record now, record or it's not happening. So it just varies.
I see some people talking about Wally West in the chat. Have you been following any of the, wait, you have been following the Flash stuff, right? Were you reading the Flash?
I was more of it, but I fell off a little bit. I did jump on, like I was on and I was still on when Cy Spurrier took over and it became like the vibe changed and everything. But I did fall off a little bit just because I was following so many things and I jumped on to some of those short golden age hero things that were happening with the Sandman and Flash and those kind of things. I'm just like, it's a lot. So like what I'm planning on doing actually is I'm doing, like I was mentioning earlier, an update for Ultimate X-Men because I think instead of going issue by issue, it can be fun just sometimes to like pop back in and be like, what are we doing? Like, how is it going now? Like, what's happened like since we've been away? Is it the same? Is it different? The concerns or things we liked, like issue 1, are we still concerned? Are we not concerned? Like, you know, that kind of thing. Like, it'll be fun to check up on that and see where we're at. Especially like Ultimate X-Men's been interesting in terms of how people have been talking about it. So that's going to be interesting to cast back up with.
Ultimate X-Men. I am very excited. I have only read a couple issues. I have a couple more issues to read to be caught up, and I'm really excited to get back into that because I feel like so far I'm really liking it, and I just love everything Ultimate right now. I just feel like Ultimate is so cool, and I'm like, I wasn't super hyped for this to come back. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, finally. I was like, we'll see how that is. It's a cool idea. And then they did it, and I was like, this is like, dang, this is like really good. They really nailed it, I think.
I've been enjoying it, but I can also see why people feel that Ultimate X-Men kind of stands out in terms of the line. Like, it does feel the most different of all of them.
It is very different. It is, I mean, it is exactly what I imagined it would be in terms of how different it is.
No, it's like if you are familiar with Peach Momoko's work, it is exactly what it's what you expect it to be. So
it's kind of putting Peach Momoko though on like another scale. So I also understand that like for a lot of people, like this might be their first like Momoko like exposure
encounter, you know.
And so I think there are some people, like I know in my chat when we've talked about it before, I get like a range of, some people are like, oh yeah, that's really cool. And some people are like, I don't get it. And I'm like, yeah, that's fair. Like, well, it is very different.
And also because of the pitch that they pitched her was like, do it your way. So I'm like, she is delivering exactly what they told her to do. Like, because I'm like, they approached her and they asked her like, we want X-Men your way. And that's what she's doing. So I'm like, this is the brief. This was the assignment and she's doing it. So
she's doing it. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, I don't know how it will fully connect to everything, but I do feel like there's a plan for how this all can come together, and depending on where we go with it, I think that Hickman has ideas. So I'm kind of just curious to see where it all goes, because it all kind of feels like it's everyone's, even though I think Momoko is definitely the most doing her own thing. I think everyone is doing their own thing to an extent, but there are definitely things that could blend together a little bit more seamlessly.
There are some that feel tighter, like how Ultimate Spider-Man feels really tight with Ultimates, but then like Black Panther is a bit more off. But then because its art style is more similar, it feels more in line.
It still connects. Yeah. Whereas I think because Momoko is so stylistic, I can see why people feel that it's like very distant. But I'm also just like, I do trust that, like, if we wanted to weave that in, it's very easy for us. I think we could do that pretty seamlessly. However, you would have to decide how are we going to handle that artistically, because
Yes, and that would be interesting.
it is a very stylistic
Hmm.
thing. And that is what I love about Momoko's work, though, is I love that it's its own style, its own thing. That's why I love it. So I'm like, I wouldn't want to lose that, but I think you can still maintain that through some of the writing. And even maybe if we did like some kind of crossover with everyone where
Hmm.
you have like certain pages or certain artists. I like when people do that in like a crossover, actually, when it's like,
I like
page
that
like
too.
10 to 15 is this person, and it's a cool little blend.
No, it can be fun. Like as long as it's done deliberately and like planned, that
Mm-hmm,
can be a
mm-hmm.
lot of fun.
As long as it flows well. That's the other thing too. Is like you don't want your comic to feel disjointed, but I think you
Hmm.
can blend artists without it feeling like so like whoa, like what's even happening now. But
Hmm.
I don't know. I guess it also depends. For some people that might take them out more. For me, I find it just like brings me more into like if you're trying to do something stylistic in that issue or a few
Hmm.
different styles.
No, it really depends because some people like everybody has that art style where there's like no, like no, thank you, I can't. You know, I'm
Mm-hmm.
out, or it just makes them feel some kind of way. Like because I have art styles like that where like if it causes a physical reaction where I'm just like like my skin actually crawled,
Mm-hmm.
looking at that. Ben Chan, thank you very much. Will you ever dive into Silver Age JLA? Of course. I don't even need to finish. Lots of wacky stuff and fun character interactions. Yes, that issue where not Hal kisses Black Canary needs to happen in our lives because everybody likes to grab and isolate that panel. I'm like, we need to explain the context of what was going on there because it was actually more complicated than it looks. It's fun to take it out of context, but there was a reason why that happened. Or the short-lived and incredibly awkward Black Canary Batman romance. Let's
I was gonna say, I feel like Silver Age is a time when like everyone was like coming after Black Canary. It was a weird time to be Black Canary. It's very confusing for her. But also, you know what's weird is a lot of the times when I've read that stuff, it actually makes me want to ship Black Canary with anyone other than Green Arrow. But I
that's
also don't know.
that's my regular state that I just need to quietly keep to myself in my like my
Okay,
corner.
so well, at least we have each other in this. Because I'm like, but we did that issue with Green
Yes.
Arrow. You already know my thoughts on Green Arrow. I'm like,
I actually was low
why
key in
do we
my
like
own
Green Arrow?
like in my own head canon, I low key shipped Black Canary and Hal for years, like for a long time, and I just keep that in my own little corner of shame. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I
Honestly, I
don't
like
even
it
know if it
better
would
than
make
Green Arrow
sense.
and Black Canary. I'm gonna be real with you. I think there's like a bunch of other people that I ship Black Canary with before Ollie in my head canon.
Would you get on that Bronze Age Batman train for like two
I would get on
issues?
I would get on the Bronze Age Batman train. Yeah. I would ride the train. I think that could be good in that era anyways. Maybe not
Oh,
now,
do you remember when she
but
was dating Dr. Midnight? That was a
oh
time.
yeah.
That was a time that happened, and they like broke them up, and they're like, that just didn't work for reasons, because I don't know, and I was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, they were like, we don't really have any. We have to put her back with this person, and you're like, right, but that could have been.
Oh yeah, and
Could
then they
that
had
have
to
not
work
been good?
together in that one issue, and it was like, boys, you need to settle your issues. And I was like, oh dear.
That's what I mean, though. I feel like around Black Canary, there's a lot of times when boys have to settle their issues, and I'm like, guys,
No, not
man,
All Star Batman and Black Canary. We leave that
no,
in the All Star.
we don't talk about that. That's not. That's not what I want. Just to be clear, I just would like it to be known. Not what I mean when I say I ship them.
I mean,
But
although I
Bronze
like to
Age,
talk about that issue because they paint themselves yellow to fight Hal, which is hilarious, and it will never not be funny to me.
honestly, that is a thing where I'm like, why didn't we just ever do this? Like, why has no one done that? I mean, I guess they did kind of do that with John when they painted the bomb yellow.
Oh, they did that in DC versus Vampires. They coded him yellow, and it was they just decided that yellow was a thing again for DC versus
It's
Vampires.
not, but all right. I mean, it is its own kind of world, right? So it
I
could be a
was
thing.
talking about, I think, in like another stream, but it's true. When they took out Vampire Hal, like the joy left me for that series.
I
he
mean,
was
it's
he was so over the top. So I
I
miss
feel
it.
like I haven't read all of it. I've only read a little bit of it, but the parts that I read of it, I was pretty interested in. And people have asked me, like, Amanda, how have you not read this? And I'm like, I know, it is vampires. And it's
And they're
DC.
coming back with the sequel for Elseworlds. I'm like, but I too
Ooh.
did not finish it. I'm like, shame. There was even a punchline appearance. And I'm like, I just like shame on myself. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't finish this.
I will say, I feel like some of the twists in it, I was like, oh yeah, like I saw that coming. And I would have preferred if it was more of a, like a reveal.
Yeah, I get that.
It's also hard sometimes when you are a person that writes about comics, because sometimes there are things that like you just have to research, and like I don't have time to like read every single panel of something. So sometimes I also spoil things for myself. But even when I was like just like trying to speed read, I was like, I already feel like this is about what's about to happen, and I'm like, oh, that is what happened. And then I was like, oh, all right. And I'm like, well, I'm gonna come back and read this still probably, but I'm not. It's not gonna be as enjoyable for me because one, I just spoiled it for myself, but two, I don't know if me speed reading it made it easier for me to tell, or if I read it more in depth, if it would be even more obvious to me. Sometimes I find when I go in things detailed, because there's more things in there, I'm like, oh, I wouldn't have seen it coming because there was like a bunch of pieces that I could have picked. But I don't know. Do you feel like DC versus Vampires is a little bit more, in terms of its scope, I guess? Do you feel like it's a little bit more like lasered into the story? Or do you feel like they kind of play a little bit more with ideas?
DC versus Vampires went a lot for the what's going to make a cool panel approach to things. So like when it came to certain reveals, like, oh, who is the Vampire King and stuff, it played a lot with this is going to look cool. And like, that's why it's this person, unless this makes sense from like a story perspective as to how / why it was this person.
So then I probably would have seen it coming if I.
It was very much the type of thing where it's like we're reading this for fun. Like we are not going to go in with like in a world where like the vampires are like, we can't do that here.
It's not made to be that like,
because I'm like, we will go mad if we like do that.
It's just a bit of a good time, and I do like that. You know what I'll probably never go back in and read though? Marvel Zombies. I don't think I'm ever gonna go and like read that in painstaking detail. I have revisited that series so many times and like skimmed, like read scenes, not read whole issues, read parts. And every time I go back to that, I'm like, I really don't think I want to revisit this like in full.
It's just for me, zombies aren't my favorite thing. So it's just, I'm like, I'll go there and I'll do it, but it's not going to be the thing that's going to grab me the most. Like, it's like, hey, we're doing monsters, and it's like, there's zombies. And I'm like, oh, okay. But
what's your favorite monster?
Favorite monster?
Yeah.
I mean, outside of Godzilla, who's the ultimate kaiju, king of all monsters, Did you
read the Justice League Godzilla crossovers?
Yes, and I'm going to get the hardback. I saw they were selling it on Godzilla.com, and I'm like, I'm ready.
I've heard mixed things about it. I heard some people that were like, I'm really into it, and then some people that were like, it's so predictable. But I was like, I don't know if this was for those people. That was honestly my take from the reviews that were negative.
I would argue that it's entertaining, and some of the characterizations, while off, the way in which they are off, I found amusing. But it's the kind of thing where I can understand why that could just put you out and you're like, no, I'm not here for this. Like they didn't try, like it's not enough in character. I don't want it. But for what it was, I enjoyed it. So like as someone who enjoys Godzilla crossing over doing things, I'm like here to experience it. Like a Scooby-Doo
entertainment
crossover
level of Godzilla. So I might I like, you know, Godzilla comes and like a million things get destroyed. And, like, you know, maybe there's some moral something in there, but really it's just about like watching monsters fight each other. So if it delivers on that, I mean, you can do both with it.
I like do something dropkick Godzilla. I like Victory Dance Godzilla. I like metaphor for like the dangers of nuclear power Godzilla. Like, you know, I'm just here for all of it.
Yeah. But would you say then that it's more of like the American version of Godzilla? More of like punchy?
It's a bit more that.
Yeah.
It's leaning a bit more that way. So
okay. I feel like I should check it out. I read like some like previews, and I read some interviews on it, and I was like, this sounds fun. This sounds like people had fun writing this.
It's their kind of like a Jurassic League, you know, type of thing. Yeah. It's like, oh, they're all dinosaurs, you know, like that kind of.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. But I don't know, I like vampires a lot. I know it's basic and they're overdone, but I do love them. So
I'm also a sucker for vampires. Actually, something that I need to watch that I haven't seen. I mean, obviously, I'm kind of obvious that I love vampires, but people are always like, you don't talk enough about vampires for vamp being in your name. And I'm like, I know, we need to do more vampire videos, but I really want to actually watch all of the Interview with the Vampire stuff. I know they're on season 2.
Mhm.
And when I was in Arizona, when I was traveling, it was on television like late at night, and I just
Yeah.
like fell asleep watching like episodes of Interview with a Vampire, and I was like, yeah, I'm so into this. Like people were like, when are you gonna watch this? Like you need to talk about it. And I'm like, I know. And then I was watching it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is really good. So I need to go back. Ugh. Have you
No,
watched Interview with a Vampire?
I haven't. No, I haven't as of yet. I'm
Yeah,
like, I need to because it's one of my
you should.
favorite books. But I'm
Same.
also, because of that, I am one of those like, like the book, the perfection. So I'm like, I am like a bit of like a snob like that about it. Like even so
Yeah,
I'm like, I know that
so
about
am I.
myself. So
Mhm.
I'm like, I know I'm gonna be obnoxious even to myself. So like we'll see when I get to it.
I am also that. However, I do think they've done a pretty good job. Like there are some things that are different that they've changed, obviously,
Mhm.
or like not really changed, just like things that are done differently for the series. I could already tell from the few episodes I watched. But I was like,
Mhm.
I'm kind of cool with this because I feel like it's still true to the idea. Like I feel like as long as you're true to the core of what's
That's what
going
I'm at.
on.
I'm like, or if like what you've altered has added something like it's interesting and because that's the thing, it's
Yeah.
an adaptation. So like, yes, we can bring,
Yeah.
of course, new things, you know.
But I don't like when people like when I watched the Hunger Games, the new movie,
Oh, Catching
uh
Fire or whatever. Like,
Songbirds and
okay. Oh,
Snakes.
okay.
Yeah, that one. That is the prequel. That's also based off of a book that was a prequel book
Mhm, yes.
about Snow and like President Snow and his growing up and all of that stuff. There's like a whole other character that was in there, and I was like, I can't believe they cut Pluribus or whatever his name is. And I remember Duck was like, but is it important? And I'm like, I mean, you don't need to have it. Let's be real. Like, you could cut it. I understand. But I'm like, there's things in here that I feel like it's a good, like, foil. And it's like an exposition character that, like, introduces you to stuff. And there's, like, a
Hmm.
whole dramatic scene that they just cut that I was like, but this scene would have been so good for, like, this context. And there's things like that that I'm like, it's still like a decent adaptation, but the
Hmm.
stuff they cut, and I'm like, and they cut it to like, I feel like make it shorter when this really should have been longer. Like, we went the wrong way with it. So that is like but I am the person, and I remember when I was even doing my reviews for that, people were like, well, you can't compare it to the book. And I was like, what are you talking about?
It's
It's
like, yes, I
literally
can.
based off a book. Like, I'm like, don't tell me to not compare it to the book.
Well, the other thing
It's the
too, though, is
same with Dune, and there
it's
not being the
important.
orgy scene. I was very
It's
upset
also
about that.
well, I was upset about the cutting of the child and like the miscarriage, and then there was an interview about it not being important, and I was like,
Not being important. I know
yeah.
they cut so many things. In Dune Part 2, I was like,
But the thing
I
is that
liked it, but
I understand why. I'm like, because we condensed the timeline. I'm like, I get it. Intellectually, I
yes,
completely understand. I also actually I approve based on that reasoning. But then that interview where they're like, it's not important. I'm just like, that was a very important moment for their relationship. It's like death of a
actually,
child.
it's
It's just like
super important. How dare you say that?
no,
I
I was like,
agree
how
with you.
very dare you? But then I'm like, it's also important to acknowledge when you are being like that. I'm like, I can acknowledge this about myself. This is like, I'm having like a fan moment, but at the same time, I could articulate why I feel this was an important moment, but also,
I feel like it
stay.
changes a lot of the dynamic, though, too. Don't you
It
think? Like that
does.
was the thing that I was like, I feel like it detracts a lot from the complexity between these two and what their relationship is like. Like we kind of made it a little bit more base level than I would have
Hmm.
liked because actually that is one of my favorite things about Dune is that relationship. So I
Hmm.
still think they did the relationship well, but it felt like a little bit more flat than I would have liked.
Yes.
But there's more that's going to happen. So maybe we'll get more depth as we go on and maybe more of that will be woven in.
I
I don't
am
know.
so intrigued by how they're gonna do Messiah. I'm just like, I'm fascinated. I am on the edge of my seat as to whether they bring in some of the complexities that in the modern era would be deemed problematic, but that I really want to see. So
I guess we'll see what happens. I feel like
we
there
will
were also
see.
things with Dune that I didn't like with Jessica, but I don't know. I just don't like Jessica in the movies compared to the books. But
She's harder in the movies than she is in the. You get a lot more
that's
of her
how I
inner
felt.
self in the
That's who I,
books.
yeah. And I mean, like, I understand that it's the exterior and obviously it's film. So, like, that's kind of what we can't, like, inner monologue everything. But I was like, there's ways that you can show what's happening underneath without it being like just like someone like crying or like saying a thing or whatever. And
Yeah.
actually, the fact that she even is the one that like cries, I was like, I don't know. There's a lot of things that were happening that I was like, I feel like we're doing all of this in the wrong way because I feel like Jessica's strength as a character is that she is very emotional and like that is like actually a strength of hers
Hmm.
as a character and like actually protects her in a lot of the ways from staying true to herself and fighting against some of the training that I think makes her more of a monster. And so I
Hmm.
was like, I feel like we just saw like none of that. Oh man,
No,
I
it's
feel like that.
interesting.
Should I read Messiah, by the way? What do you think before the
Yes,
next? Yes.
I think
Okay.
so. Messiah is a fascinating book. Like I really like well the first time I read Messiah I hated it. But
Right.
that's because like I was really attached to Paul as a character and I still am. And Messiah is it's painful. But like it's I really like Messiah and it's really good. And it's the essential step in what he said what like part of why he wrote it was because people were misunderstanding the first one. And they were
Right.
like they were seeing Paul as that heroic figure. And there is you can't do that in Messiah. Messiah is like, no, this is what's happening, and like we are really gonna dive into like some of like just the dangers of this prescience and stuff. And so I think it's really interesting. And
I
the
think that's going to
relationship
be
between
really
Chani and
interesting.
Irulan is
Yeah.
really, really fascinating as well.
Hmm.
So I
I think
I'd
that
say it's worth reading.
I think that will be really interesting for me. Just even based on like when I was talking to you originally when I first read the book and I was saying how like I didn't really like Paul.
Hmm.
I liked Paul at the beginning when he's like young and doesn't know really what's happening. And then like the more he clued into stuff, the more I was like, oh, I really don't like him. Like he's a very unlikable protagonist. Like I can't connect to him because he just seems so like inhuman in ways and so like I don't know, just like I felt like he was mean and all these things. And people were like, "You thought he's mean? Like, don't you think though he's going through some stuff?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but no, I think he's kind of a jerk." And then hearing the evolution of his character and knowing like sort of where he goes after that first book because
Yes.
I know some of the story, I was like, "Oh, so like what I felt was what I think I was supposed to feel." Like I think I was supposed to not connect with him or like him and feel that conflict inside myself of like do I like him or do I hate him?
No, Paul is complicated. Like his son, like Leto too, is just like Leto too is fascinating. Like I love those books, you know, so much. It's funny. I don't know if you have this on your channel too, but like there are so many things that I love that I just don't end up talking about. And it's like actually there are a whole bunch of these other interests that I also have.
I mean, there are people that come through, they're like, you should really check out this thing. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I already know I love that thing. And then they're like, oh, but you didn't talk about it. And I'm like, I know, I just have too many things to talk about. I still haven't talked about Dead Boy Detectives, and I want to do a whole video on that. I'm so excited to talk about it. But then
Mhm.
the show came and it went, and I binged all of it, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. And I don't know when I'm going to have time to film that video, but it's there. It's there. It's in my mind for
It
anyone on my
happened
channel that's
so
been
fast. I
waiting.
felt like that was like a blink. It was like I felt like the trailer happened, the show came, and then it was like, okay, we
And
did.
then it was like, we're done. We did that. We got in, we got out. I wish that, I mean, I wish that so many things were just more weekly releases because it really is hard as a content creator to absorb everything and then like get my thoughts together and then like do a thing and have it still hit within that time frame. So there's just stuff that I have on shelves that I'm like, this is here and I know about it. And like one day
Well,
I'll
it's
pull
like
it off the shelf
especially
and talk about it.
especially if you actually want to like really take the time to digest it, you know, and like actually
Yeah.
think about it and not just present the first thought,
Thought that comes to your head.
the deeper layers of like, especially so many things, like they need a second or a third watch. Like I think, especially if
I
you're
agree.
like reviewing it, because there are things you miss the first time,
Yeah, and there's things that like you clue into that you're like, oh, like this was here since like this episode, and I didn't even notice. And then like they were like building this whole thing. I agree. I like to go back and rewatch stuff, but it's like the other reality is like I know I'm not gonna, if I do it, life, and if I want to get this out sooner, then I'm just gonna have to kind of like go with what I got, go with my gut. But I also just recently binge watched Gen V because I wanted to finish it before the boys. I started it and I was just waiting to watch it with Duck. Like I thought we were gonna watch it together, and then we never did. So I just didn't finish it. And then people were like, oh, you need to like watch that. And I was like, I know. And then I watched it and I was like, man, I'm so glad. But I'm also so sad that I wasn't doing it episodically, because honestly, I want to break down every single episode of it. Like I want to go in deep on that show, but I'm just going to do a season 1. And then I'm going to be like, I don't know if you guys want this. Look, there's so much stuff I want to talk about with Game of Thrones. I can't even begin the amount that I would like to
surface.
I want to talk about the books. I want to talk about obviously the show and the history of that show and where we started and where we ended up. I want to talk about House of the Dragon. I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons stuff. I want to talk about more board game stuff. I don't have enough time. That's a problem. We need like 20 channels. That's what I feel like as well.
I know.
Like also Star Trek. I want to talk about more Star Trek all the time.
Oh, I can't even start that because I'll never stop. Mr. Cynic, I just wanted to highlight this because has anyone watched Scavenger's Reign? I have, and it's amazing, and other people should watch it too. I too feel like nobody knows that it exists. It's such a beautiful, unique sci-fi experience. It's really cool. It's on Netflix. You should check it out if you haven't heard of it. It's about these survivors who are marooned on this planet, this really alien planet that isn't afraid to let the aliens be quite alien, but also familiar in the fact that their behavior patterns are modeled off of, Earth animals in a way. And they're just trying to survive on this planet and get off if they can. And you know that nobody's looking for them. And it's really, really fascinating. It's just about their relationships with the planet, with each other. Like some people are alone, some people are together, some people with a robot. Like it's really cool. And
I love the art style.
Oh no, I love it. It's so beautiful.
It's like really pretty, but it also gives me like kind of like some Adventure Time vibes.
It's also
also very harsh looking.
It's a bit desolate.
Yeah.
It conveys like that kind of like emptiness and alienness. It's really cool.
I haven't seen this, but
it does look like Mobius. Yeah. Mind the Gap is saying it looks like that's the first thing I thought of when I looked at it. I went to look up the art inspirations, and they were talking a lot about early YouTube animations and stuff that they'd seen, and lots of Japanese inspired things like Akira and stuff like that. So it was like there's one scene in there that's just purely the end scene of Akira where he starts mutating into the thing, because anybody who's seen that scene never forgets it. So
oh my god,
it haunts them for life.
Have you seen Midnight Gospel?
I haven't, but I've seen like clips and stuff of it, and I'm like, this seems up my alley. This seems
you should watch it. I feel like you'd really like it. It's like layers on. I revisit that show all the time. That's another show that I feel like not enough people have seen. Midnight Gospel. I just watched Three Body Problem as well. Have you seen that?
No, but I've read the series. I really liked the book series a lot.
Oh, I didn't know it was based off books, but the show is, gosh, it's amazing. I need to read the books now. Oh man,
that's a trilogy.
Oh shoot. Yeah, it's really good. I was like, I don't know, are they continuing it? Is Three Body Problem getting another season, or
I'm not sure.
I hope so, but
I mean, I'm sure they only scratched the surface because
season 2 and season 3 is coming back.
Okay, because I'm like the books are dense. So like because they're hard sci-fi, like really hard. So like it's
yeah, I'm excited to check that out. I'll have to read the books, but honestly, you know what? There's so much sci-fi stuff that I feel like is popping right now. We're in like some sort of sci-fi like amazing era where we have so much good stuff that's happening.
We also have a lot of
bad stuff, but
But there's
there's
a
a
lot
lot
of
of great
cool
stuff.
indie sci-fi that's kind of like just skirting around there. And I'm like, it's really cool. And I'm like, I feel like there's a bit of a sci-fi resurgence. And like, I love that. And that doesn't surprise me because sci-fi tends to thrive at times of like peak human concern about something. So I'm
Yes.
like, now is a good time for the sci-fi.
We got a lot of concerns. Sci-fi's coming in to be like, what if we explore these things through a
Yes,
fun,
let's
creative
work
story?
through that.
Let's work through that. Yeah, and I mean, I think that it's also the more concerning the issues that you're facing, or the more like, just wild. I feel like that's when sci-fi can really dig into stuff where you're like, oh shoot, that's
And
true.
I feel like we're in such a fascinating era of sci-fi because so many things that were once conceived of as the future are here and it's now. So then it's just kind of like, well,
We
then
are the sci-fi.
so then
Yeah.
it's like, how do you extrapolate forward from that? And it's really fascinating to conceive of how people are going to evolve, how their minds are going to work,
How
how
we'll
we're
progress.
changing, And
Yeah.
I'm just like, it's fascinating to me. I find it really fascinating.
We also have that new Alien movie that's going to be coming out, which I'm
Ah,
pretty
yes.
excited about. Alien, what's it called? Romulus?
It's Romulus, yeah.
Romulus. And I was like, initially I was like, do we need another Alien movie? And then I watched the teaser for it and I was like, wait a minute, this looks great. And it's the person that did the first Evil Dead remake,
Okay.
which I loved.
Hmm.
And it looks like it's going to be a body horror to like the nth degree. But I also
Hmm.
just feel like the name Romulus, like I think that's going to be the name of the ship or the space station or whatever they're
Hmm.
on. But I'm also just like, Romulus is an interesting name because I wonder like what that'll mean and if this will like thematically. I think
If it will
thematically it's also
matter.
gonna have a lot to say. Yeah. Which is my favorite
Hmm.
Alien. I love when Alien is just like, we're a horror, we're scary, but then also they're like, but this little thing. I don't want it to be the whole story,
Hmm.
but I want it to make me think a bit and be like, wait a minute, what's going on here? So I'm
I
excited
want
for that.
something interesting. Like what I want is I'm looking for. This sounds like I'm on scouting, but I'm just like looking for like the next truly alien design, like just
Yeah.
something that's like just unique and weird and different. I'm like always on the hunt for that. I want an alien that looks like truly alien that just makes you think like, what is that? You know,
Yeah. I think Alien does that pretty well.
Alien does do that, but I'm like a
Yeah.
new one. Like we're
Yeah,
used to
something
Alien
fresh.
now.
Something, yeah, we already know. We're not surprised by the look because we know what it looks like. That's true. People are asking about Doctor Who thoughts in the chat.
You have been up on the Who, so
I have been very up on the Who. I did watch the last episode, episode 8, The Legend of Ruby Sunday.
Mhm.
And I just filmed my review for it actually before I came on to do the stream. And I gotta say, I'm also a fan. I did like it. I felt like it was the most Who episode of all of the episodes this season in a good way. Although
Mhm.
there were a couple things that I was like, this does feel very Who, but in a way that I'm not sure if I like this part of Who. Or like if I'm just tired of it, I don't know. Or if it was just the way it was done in the episode, I don't know. Also, I've been saying that I feel like I love Shuchi Gatwa, just to preface this. I really love him as the Doctor. I've been loving it, but I was saying he cries every single episode. It's become a thing, and I was
Yeah, you were
like,
telling me like you were looking for proof. Like, did he cry like last
yeah,
episode?
I was saying, yeah. Duck and I both watched it, and we had this. I was saying I was happy because he didn't cry this episode. He did get tears in his eyes, but he didn't full cry. And I was like, okay, that's good. I just wanted a break. I don't mind him crying. I don't mind when people cry. I'm just like, every episode is a bit much, sir. Like, please just give us a break. And so Duck was like, no, he did cry. I saw this thing. And then he was like, his tears down his face. And he sent me a picture and of the screenshot. And then he was like, oh, wait, no, I don't think he has tears. I think maybe he just has like a little pimple. Maybe it might be a pimple, actually. And we looked at it and I was like, yeah, he had just had them in his eyes. Which is fine. You can tear up. You can cry. Just not 7 episodes in a row is a lot of tears for me. So we did get a break this episode, which I also appreciated. But that reveal, though, I don't want to spoil anything for people, but that reveal, that twist, I was very into it. I was like, ooh. And I'm wondering what the implications will be moving forward because it was also interesting that this episode was still called The Legend of Ruby Sunday. And although we did get into that a little bit, I feel like we're still just scratching the surface. So I'm wondering if that means that there's other stuff in here that's going to build still into that mysterious origin for our companion, I'm very
You
curious.
see, for me, like I'm not on the Who at all, but I've been off for years. Like it's been a long time for me. I've been able to acknowledge that I think I was only in because of certain actors who were playing the Doctor. And so I am not like I think I just fell down a David Tennant crush rabbit hole and
Yeah.
stayed for a little bit in the Matt Smith era. And I've been off honestly since the mid of that. And like it's not even for like any like concrete reason. It's
Yeah.
just it's just, you know,
I
sometimes it's
mean,
just not your series. Like,
sometimes I feel like Doctor Who is also a bit of a cyclical thing for me. So like sometimes I'll be super into it and then I'll like fade away for a bit and then I just come back and then I just like catch up. Like the one thing I was saying is I do feel that this season is a really good jumping on point. Like I was talking to someone at the con I was just at this weekend, YetiCon, and who hasn't watched Who but wanted to get into Who and was talking to me about it. And I was like, honestly, I feel like this is a really good, like they're really trying to make it a jumping on point. And I do agree. If you just wanted to start on this season, you could. You could go all the way back to Modern Who and watch from Eccleston and go through, and it would be a beautiful journey. But I was like, but if you're new and you're like, you know, that is daunting and I don't want to do that. The thing that I appreciate about this season is I feel like it's a good jumping on point, or if you just wanted to get back into it. But I don't know if you're like me, where like for me, I'm like, well, I can't get back into it if I haven't seen all of it. That's can't do it.
I do
Also,
feel like I'm like, I need to catch up.
yeah. Also, 73 Yards. Someone was saying 73 Yards was a Doctor Who tier list episode, which yes, I believe it was, but Ruby was still, there was a lot going on for Ruby in that episode, so she was crying. So like there's just been a lot of tears is my point, you know? And like I get it. We've had some serious stuff. So the tears are justified. I just don't want us to cry all the time. That's all.
Common Sense has a question for you, which is Amanda, do you think Joseph should be an Avenger?
Joseph is in like Magneto's clone.
Like Magneto's clone.
Yeah, I think honestly, you know, we were talking about Storm being announced and my feelings about that and just how I was kind of like, oh, that's awesome, but like, oh, like I kind of would have guessed Storm. But you know who you'd never guess? Joseph.
It's true. You wouldn't see that coming.
Wouldn't see that coming. And I think Joseph would, one, be a powerful member to have, and two, could be really fun. And I think Joseph also, with his appearance in the Scarlet Witch series that happened, which also is coming back now, because we finished the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver mini, so now we're back. But we're back to number 1, even though it's still Steve Orlando. But we have a different artist, so... Went back to 1. But I did like what they did with Joseph in that series and kind of just bringing him in. And him kind of working through like some of the issues of like, you know, being his own person. I always find clone stories interesting because I usually find they tend to be this exploration of like, what does it mean to be who I am? Because when you're a clone of someone, like, are you or are you the other person? Like, who are you? And I love who are you stories. Like, who am I? And what does that mean? And what is identity? So, yeah, let's put Joseph on the Avengers. I'm here for it. You know what? Let's just have a clone Avengers, actually. I would be here for that.
Clone
All
squad.
clones.
You have to have been a clone. Otherwise, you can't
Only
join.
clones on the Avengers. Honestly, I feel like they could help each other with a lot of issues as well. Clones get it. Clones get each other.
Clone support group.
Clone support group. Yeah. Oh man, bring back baby Magneto.
You know, they can't, but the thing is they don't need to, because did you finish Resurrection of Magneto?
I haven't finished it yet. I've seen moments of it. Some great moments.
So like I don't know if you noticed that at the end he looks significantly younger.
Yes, yeah.
Than when he went in. So I'm like, I think we did a subtle Magneto de-ageification.
We did. He's not quite baby, but he's like, you know, young
he's
Magneto.
Prime again. We're Eric the Redding it. He's back at his prime.
He's his most powerful, perhaps.
Perhaps he came out saying that.
Yeah. He said, I am power.
So
he's back, baby. He's not quite a baby, but he's back, baby, I think, you know? Yeah, people were talking about that and like how he like looks so much younger. And I'm like, yeah, he's like young now. He's young again.
Yes.
Which like, that's fine. I don't know. Why not? You know? To me, I'm like, sure.
I'm down.
I'm down with any version of Magneto, to be honest with you. Give me all Magneto.
Anybody calls him Max is weird to me. And like, it's like
When
Storm
he's
kept
young?
no, like just in general, Storm kept calling him Max the entire time, and it's just always odd to me. I'm like, I know that Max Eisenhart is a name that is there, and we have much lore about, but I'm just like, it's always odd to me. I'm like, I'm never used to it. It always jars me. It was
You're
like
like, it's
when
Eric or nothing.
it was like when Bishop called Forge Daniel. I was like, whoa,
Whoa. Daniel.
that was a lot.
Maybe it was like for some people how every time Roberto showed up in X-Men 97, we kept calling him Bobby.
I know, and people were like, "What's wrong with you?"
We were like Bobby, and then we're like, wait, I mean Roberto.
They're like,
but
"When did
also
Iceman
Bobby
get
is
here?"
correct. Yeah. It's the same thing with Max. It's like technically yes, but also no.
Oh, Ben Chan is saying that's how magnets work.
That's
true.
how magnets
They
work.
keep you young.
They keep you young, eternally youthful. Well, I mean, he is resurrected, so he can be whatever, I guess, is,
I mean, if you're gonna get resurrected, I mean, why
it's-
not?
shave a few years off. I think everyone was doing that. You know, Destiny came back, and she came back young. They were like, make her young again. You know, Agatha Harkness has been young. That's the thing. That's the thing that's happening. It's a thing. It's happened.
It is a thing.
I don't know how I feel about it.
I don't
There's
know,
some people that it's interesting. Some people I'm like, this person can be young. And I'm like, this other person, I'm like, I don't know. Do we make that person young?
Let's have some old representation. Not everybody needs to be young. We can have
Not
some
everyone
older
needs to be young.
peeps.
Yeah, that is also true. It is important that it's balanced. Because the thing is, if we make everyone young, then who will be the elders among us? We need people to be older in the... Also, why can't people be old and also be villains or superheroes or any of these things? I think that's... Bring back horticulture. What are they doing? I haven't seen them in forever. Are they still around? I miss them. My golden gal plant lady villains. The best. They were like there for a minute and then they're gone. And I feel like but I don't know. I haven't been reading Fall of X. Fall of X friends in the chat. People that are more up to date than I am. Is horticulture still around? How are they doing? Are they okay? Can we bring them back? Who do I have to write to about this?
Right,
who do I have to at on Twitter?
It's like
I did actually ask a question about the wedding of Destiny Mystique. To who wrote that? Was it Jed McKay that wrote it?
Did you get an answer?
I did not get an answer. I was very curious though. Who wrote Marvel Voices? Who did it? I act like I'm like ready to like give them a piece of my mind. Who wrote this piece? No, I really liked it. I really liked the Marvel Voices. I have the DC Pride. I haven't read it yet, but I'm also excited for that. But I really liked it. Oh, it was Kieran Gillen, I think, wrote it. Was it Kieran Gillen? I think it was Kieran Gillen. Anyways, so I added Kieran Gillen because I just had a question about it. I tried to ask it like nice, like I wasn't trying to be like, well, I actually wasn't trying to do one of those, but I was just genuinely curious how the wedding fits in with everything that's been happening with Fall of X, because like mutants are being hunted, right? And then we're having this wedding, and then it happened at Avengers Mansion, which right now is like a resort. So like, I was like, okay, so everyone's gathering, like all these mutants, all these heroes are also here. Like, is this okay? Like, how is this? Like, when does this happen during Fall of X? Because if it does, like, how does this happen during Fall of X is my question. I did not get an answer, but other people responded to me and was like, this question though is yes.
Those are yeah. I wonder about those kinds of things too. So.
Like, I understand it's June, so maybe it's, you know, I think I'm just overthinking it. And the answer is, well, Amanda, it's Pride Month, and this is a thing that we've been wanting to do, and so we did it. And yes, Fall of X is happening at this time. Yes. But shush. But it's a wedding, and I'm going to be like, it is a wedding, and I'm happy that it happened. I just, yeah, I feel like that would be a bad idea, you know? Like, we do need a wedding right now because everything else is falling to pieces, but I don't think we should all gather in one spot. Like, I feel like Orcus and everyone that's hunting us will come to the wedding and maybe kill everyone. Also, remember last time we all gathered in a place and celebrated? Remember that? Hellfire Gala 2023? Woo! Didn't go well. Who got married? Destiny and Mystique. Destiny and Mystique had an official wedding, and it was very cool. And it was not what you expected. It was very fun. And then there was also some history about Destiny and Mystique. And then there was also an interview with Chris Claremont. And then there was also an Iceman special. And I was wondering, I was like, how is Iceman not prominently featured in this? Because I think Iceman is Marvel's favorite gay. But they did have an Iceman story for me at the back. So I was like, there he is.
Well, you know, I need it for the interview. Because I'm
Pardon?
like, I need it for the, I'm always collecting the quotes. So.
Oh yeah, it's a really great interview too. It's Angelique Roche interviewing Chris Claremont, and I just felt like they had such a really cute, such a like, I don't know. I just feel like Chris Claremont always has such interesting things to say.
Oh no, they're always fascinating. I love a Chris Claremont quote. So.
I love it. He's always saying stuff that I'm like, damn, yeah, like. You just put that into words. Like, there are things that I think that sometimes I feel like I need Chris Claremont to, like, write my thoughts for me. Because I feel like he says things that I'm thinking, but I can't articulate at times. That's a writer for you, you know? That's a wordsmith. And then what else is in there? Oh, and then there's a really awesome story from X Factor that was reprinted that I didn't even know it was, I mean, because I haven't read enough X Factor either. This is another thing. And I've read X Factor, but not enough X Factor, clearly. Anyway, so there was a story from X Factor in there that has to do with Mystique and Destiny's last laugh. And it literally made me laugh cry. It hit me so hard. I think that's Peter David.
I know people are a bit mixed on when they reprint the old issues, but I actually like it. And I mean, it's not a new thing. They used to reprint them more. And yeah. I think it's cool. I think it's a cool way to get people to know about some older stories that otherwise kind of fade. I mean, I think you have to be selective about the ones that you reprint, but yeah, I think it could be a really good way to introduce some of the other eras or history.
I mean, the one thing I would say is, like, I did feel because it was a Pride issue and it's supposed to be like a mega size issue and then you're just doing a reprint. I felt two things. One, I was
would you want it to be bigger? Like, would you want an extra original? Or
like, I just think that shouldn't be like considered part of your like jumbo size, you know? Although there was still a lot in there, so don't get me wrong. Like, I do feel like I got my value. But then the other side of it was that I loved the story so much and I wasn't even familiar with it that I was like, honestly though, if you're gonna do it, this is the story to put in here. Because that's how good the story is. Like, the story, like, it made me laugh. It made me laugh and cry at the same time. Like, I was literally like, that's hilarious. And I was also like, my heart just broke. So if you're going to do it, that's a great story to do it with. I think you're right in the sense of, like, you just have to pick and choose to make sure that when you're reprinting a story that it really feels like,
yeah, like, we reprinted this for a reason. Like,
we're not just reprinting this to sell things. We're reprinting this to sell things and because we think it deserves to be reprinted and we want to make sure that newer readers are more familiar with this because it's a really good story. Because it was, whoa, that story hit me like a ton of bricks.
I read a lot of like the old Silver Age stuff, and there are a lot of times when they just like collect, a bunch of like Jimmy turned into stuff, and here's 5 stories where that happened and stuff like that. And like I like things like that. I'm like, those can be fun. Like, if they ever did like bring back doing things like, oh, here's a bunch of Mixie stories we did recently, and like here's like 6 of them or something. I'm like, as long as you didn't, the thing is the pricing also matters. I'm like, those kind of things matter because you are reprinting it. I'm like, but I feel like you could figure it out. We could make it friendly.
We can make it friendly and accessible and make it like, oh, but this is like a fun thing you might want to pick up. Like, that's where the price really does matter though, because you're considering like, oh, but like this already exists. Like, do I need to buy this?
And it's a bit different because now you do have more access than you used to. Different ways to potentially be able to get in touch with it, especially if you can find a digital version or if you want to do the unlimited. It depends on whether you want the physical or not, or if it's been reprinted in some kind of collection or trade, which is likely.
Also, you want that? That's the other thing. Like, do you want that, single issue print? Or do you want just to go get a trade or get a Masterworks or any of those things? So it's like,
no, there's a lot more things to consider.
Yeah. Sure. I will say, I feel like Marvel did this thing. I don't know if they still do these, but I had a Hellstrom issue that was like, just like kind of a spotlight issue. And it's like they do selective, like different reprints of different things. And it's kind of building the profile of like who the character is. And I don't know when that's from, like a few years ago now. I don't think I've seen them do one of those in a while. And those are really cool. Like, I want more of that. Like, I want them to take either a team or like a character and just be like, here's like a breakdown of some like important stories for that character and like a little bit more like just like info in there. I don't know, but I'm also like a passionate like guidebook person. Like anytime there's an event that gives me a guidebook, like I love buying those. I love them. I just love collecting bios. I'm like, bios. I can read them all and learn so many facts and learn about like stories or things that happen in people's lives. And I'm like, ooh, when did that happen? I can find that and I can read it. So for me, I am way too passionate about bios. So that I don't know if that would be for everybody, but for me, those stories I think are really cool because it is a collection of reprints, but it's also like kind of curated.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's like it's organized, it's curated, there's a purpose to it.
Yeah, there's a structure. But when they're just like, we're just gonna reprint this one story because it's like an iconic story by itself without any context, I'm like, ooh, I'd like that, but I'd like it with a side of context, please. That's why I like what they did in Marvel Voices, even though I was like, technically you're using the page numbers to tell an old story. But I was like, but the story is so good, and considering that you put it in with Mystique and Destiny and all of this stuff, it's like the perfect context. Perfectly contextualized, a fantastic story that I had not read before, and so therefore I give it the stamp of approval.
Because I think that's the most fun experience when you discover a story you hadn't read before. And you're like, wow, like, this is actually really interesting. Or like maybe it's just an era you never considered looking at. Because it can be daunting to like, there's so many comics and there's so many different series. It can be a bit daunting to know where to dive in. So,
and as much as I would love to go back and just say like, I'm going to read every single issue of X-Men ever that's ever happened and just do that. I'm like, I don't have time. If I did that, that would be its own. I would never have time to talk about Doctor Who or any other things. That would be
it's like that would just be your life. This is my life now.
My life is just X-Men. Yeah, I am X-Men. That's my purpose as a content creator. Although I have flirted with the idea a few times of just doing like a solely just an X-Men channel, but I don't know what would happen to me.
Burn out. I feel like you get like there'd be days where you're just like, I hate the X-Men.
The X-Men, the bane of my existence. Yeah. I do worry because I wouldn't want to ever hate the X-Men. I love them so much. I'd be sad if I hated them. I do love them a lot though. So I feel like I could go a while, but it might have to be a thing that you do in seasons, like you film 8 episodes or 10 episodes of that. And then you say, now we're going to take a month or so off.
It's
and
like,
then
that's
I'll come
done
back.
now.
And then I'll definitely, if I'm taking a month off, I'm going to be dead before I finish that. If I'm doing like every issue, as its own, or even every story is its own, I won't make it. I'll be like 180 or something.
Be DH to a baby so that you can get all of the content.
Especially with all the From the Ashes stuff that's coming out. Like already we have so many books in this line. Why? We're just starting. Everyone's getting a mini. I mean, I love it, but well, not even a mini. Everyone's getting an ongoing, and then Dazzler's getting a mini. Dazzler's the only one getting a mini because it's Dazzler. We don't trust. We don't trust that Dazzler can have an ongoing, guys.
You're gonna have to be there to like spread the awareness of Dazzler.
I'm gonna be buying every issue. I'm gonna be telling everyone to buy it. I'm gonna be like, please buy this so I can have a Dazzler ongoing again. Please, please, Lord, let it happen. I hope it's good. I hope it's good. If it's not good, I'm gonna cry. I will literally be so sad. If it's not good, I feel like I won't be able to do a video on it. And then people will say, when are you going to talk about this? And I'll be like, I can't talk about it. It's too heartbreaking. It better be good. There's I'm putting a lot of pressure on this poor limited series. I'm so sorry.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
I just looked at the time. It's getting pretty late.
Oh, yeah.
It's a new day.
It's a new day. It's classic us. We're like, I don't know. Let's just talk about a million nerd things late into the night.
Oh. Well, it was
Dazzler
great.
Is Jason Liu. Jason Liu, it's all on you. I hope you can nail it.
Pressure as we end off the stream. I want to thank everybody for coming and hanging out and chatting revenge of former baby Magneto, as well as all the other things that we ended up segueing off into. It was, as always, a really great time and really great to chat. And we, of course, will be back talking about something else in the future.
Stay tuned. It could be anything. Who knows?
We'll see what it will be. But enjoy the rest of your day, night, evening. Check out Amanda. As always, her links and all of that good stuff will be down in the description box below. And we'll catch you again very, very soon. Good night, morning, whatever it is.
Bye. Bye, everyone.